Chapter 342, The Departure of Ming Dong. Separating from the crowd, Jian Chen finally managed to get away from the multitude and return to the very first inn he had rested in. Within the tavern, countless of men were chatting while eating their meals. The topics in every single group revolved around the number one ranker in the gathering of the mercenaries, Jian Chen. Who would have thought that Jian Chen would seize the first place spot? I've heard he only has a strength around the first or second cycle Earth Saint Master level. For him to beat Tsar, a sixth cycle Earth Saint Master with a Radiant Saint force, it's almost inconceivable. A middle-aged man with a refined look and a well-educated manner spoke. With a single look, the man could be taken to be a scholar. That's right, I didn't expect to see Jian Chen defeat Tsar. It cost me 3,000 purple coins. If I had known earlier, then I would have bet on Jian Chen. Another dowdy-looking man poured a cup of wine into his mouth with an indignant face from the memory of him losing 3,000 purple coins. Huh, young man, you've only lost 3,000 purple coins, so what? Compared to those who have gambled away millions of purple coins, your loss is nothing but a drop in the ocean. The scholar laughed. The four other mercenaries sitting at the table had one of the men give a long sigh. A heaven-tier battle skill. Even if I were to live out my entire life now, I would not be able to find one myself. For Jian Chen to be able to obtain one so easily, I am envious of him. Big brother, we were just born in the wrong time. Otherwise, we would have been able to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries as well. You wish. Do you think first place is that easy to obtain? Did you not see those that were far stronger than us participate and be eliminated before they could enter the top 10? Even if we were participants, it would be a miracle for us to enter the top 100. That's right, we aren't all that strong, so it's best not to think about these things. The Tianyuan continent is quite large and has no shortage of geniuses. Each one has been specially trained since young, so their strength should be strong enough to become an Earth Saint Master at a young age. Furthermore, they have access to the most profound battle skills and cultivation methods. Did you not see that Ming Dong? He was already able to use an advanced heaven-tier battle skill at his young age, and yet he was still only third place. I'm sure that first place Jian Chen is strong enough to even fight against Heaven Saint Masters. From the chatter of everyone around, the majority of the people were envious and full of admiration for Jian Chen. But then, a sharp-eyed fellow had noticed Jian Chen walking in before crying out in surprise, "Everyone, look! Isn't that the winner of the competition, Jian Chen?" Upon hearing his voice, everyone immediately stopped eating and swung their heads to look at where the man had pointed. Each one looked on in shock at the white-robed Jian Chen. Within the previously loud inn, no one dared to make a sound. Jian Chen ignored all the gazes on him, since he had no interest in any one of them. With that, Jian Chen left for the upper levels of the inn. The moment Jian Chen disappeared, everyone in the inn immediately exploded with chatter. Jian Chen's in this inn? Do you think he's renting a room here? Jian Chen looks even younger than I thought. With one look, I could tell he is from a large family with a strong potential. Not only is he young and promising, but he is quite handsome too. At such a young age, Jian Chen was able to defeat the sixth cycle Earth Saint Master Tsar. His potential is truly unlimited. The heaven-tier battle skill and cultivation method Jian Chen won from the gathering of the mercenaries surely has to be on him right now. How envious. Pay attention to what you say so you don't get in trouble for it. Do you not have a filter on what words you speak out loud? A few of the inn residents continued to talk among each other. Even the busy waitresses hurriedly spoke to each other. Hurry up and report to the shopkeeper. The king of mercenaries, Jian Chen, is in our inn. This is a great event. Arriving at the second floor of the inn, Jian Chen immediately walked to where Qin Zhao's room was. They had already prepared a private room where all sorts of exotic delicacies were prepared for him to congratulate him on his win. Seated at the dinner table already was Dugu Feng, Tianmu Ling, Qin Ji, Yun Zheng, Seniorin, Ming Dong, Qin Shao, Qin Ju, and several others. Aside from them, the Grand Elder of the Tianqin clan could be seen waiting with a smile. Among all the people Jian Chen was familiar with, all of them except Huang Luan had gathered here. At the dinner table, everyone congratulated Jian Chen on his win. Even the Grand Elder of the Tianqin clan had changed his attitude toward Jian Chen to a more respectable status. Even Qin Ji and Tian Muling were given respect from him. That was also because the three outsiders of the Tianqin clan, Du Gufeng, Qin Ji, and Tian Muling were all from three different factions with even more strength than what the Tianqin clan could afford to provoke. Qin Ji especially had a very extraordinary identity. After the meal, when everyone had left, Jian Chen and Ming Dong both returned to Jian Chen's room where Ming Dong spoke. In 2 days, Uncle Tian and I will go bring my father and mother here, so I will be gone for some time. That is no problem, be at ease. In 3 days, I will be leaving to enter the Holy Land for half a year. Jian Chen laughed as he waved his hand in a casual manner. Sitting by Jian Chen's side, Ming Dong asked, Jian Chen, I've known you for quite some time, but I don't know where your family is. Did you wish for me to bring some news to them? Jian Chen's expression immediately grew conflicted. Some thoughts hidden away in his brain were brought out by this question. I've left my home for a good amount of time by now, but I don't know whether or not my mother is faring well. There is also my elder brother Changyang Hu and second sister Changyang Mingyue who have both cared for me always. Changyang Mingyue surely must have married by now. What a shame that I wasn't able to attend the ceremony. Jian Chen thought dejectedly. At this thought, he had suddenly realized just how much he desired to return home and see his family once more. It had been far too long since he had left his home. Seeing the dejected Jian Chen, Ming Dong had an indescribable look in his eye. From Jian Chen's expression, he could see that something was weighing down on him. Placing a hand on Jian Chen's shoulder, Ming Dong spoke lightly, Jian Chen, what's wrong? If there's any trouble, go ahead and tell me. I, Ming Dong, will definitely find a way to help you. If I can't, then I will definitely ask Uncle Tian to. Ming Dong's words had shaken Jian Chen awake from his thoughts. Shaking his head, Jian Chen replied, no, there's nothing, I'm just remembering some old memories, that's all. Jian Chen needed power to deal with the Huayun sect. Although he knew that asking Ming Dong and Uncle Tian for help would easily resolve the matter, and probably touch upon the crisis Jessan Kingdom was currently facing as well, Jian Chen did not wish to go about this route. The Huayun sect had forced him to run away from his home when he was only 15 years old. To Jian Chen, this had carved an unforgettable amount of hatred for them into him. Jian Chen desired to finish this affair with his own power. He did not want any outside power to help him with his revenge. With a mental sigh, Jian Chen took the heaven-stolen fortune out from his space ring and said, Ming Dong, your house isn't that far away from the Jessan Kingdom, so I hope that during your return trip, you could hand this over to Changyang Ba of the Changyang clan in Lore City. Originally, Jian Chen planned on giving the Advanced Heaven Tier Battle Skill 9 Cloud Movement to Ming Dong to give to the Changyang clan, but after some thought, he decided to instead give them the Heaven-Stolen Fortune. This was because a Heaven Tier Battle Skill was far too precious. He was afraid that if news were to spread that an Advanced Heaven Tier Battle Skill was at the Changyang clan, there would be trouble. While the Changyang clan was not weak, they weren't strong enough to protect 2 Heaven Tier Battle Skills, especially since one of them was an Advanced Heaven Tier Battle Skill. So, Jian Chen finally decided to let Ming Dong bring the Heaven-Stolen Fortune back with him because of the special characteristic of the battle skill. When activated, no person would be able to tell that it was a Heaven Tier Battle Skill. This was a battle skill that directly increased one's strength. It was hard to tell that it was anything special, as it could conceal itself very well, unlike other Heaven Tier Battle Skills, which would display astounding power as soon as they were activated. Ming Dong took the Heaven-Stolen Fortune with a serious look as he spoke, Don't worry, Jian Chen. I'll definitely bring this back to Changyang Ba of the Changyang clan. Remember, you must keep that this is a heaven-tier battle skill a secret." Ming Dong's departure was sudden. By the second day, he had left Mercenary City with a respectful farewell. At the same time, Qin Shao, Qin Ju, and the other Tianqin clansmen followed the Grand Elder out of Mercenary City. Although they didn't wait for Tian Zhou, the Grand Elder had concluded that Tian Zhou must have met an unexpected situation, and with only a sad sigh, he said no more about the matter. He knew that gathering tokens within the isolated space was the goal, and even if he found out that Tian Zhou had been killed by someone, he would not be able to find them. Even Dugu Feng had said farewell to Jian Chen as he took the ruler armament along with some other elders out of Mercenary City, leaving only Jian Chen behind. Because Jian Chen would be residing within the Holy Land for half the year, he had already dispatched Signoren and Yunzheng on a mission for the Flame Mercenaries. They were to go to the Jessen Kingdom and ensure that the Changyang clan would be given assistance. Although the distance from here to the Jessen Kingdom was quite large, this would not be a problem for the two. Chapter 343, The Matchless Heavenly Enchantress. By now, the inn that Jian Chen was residing in had a long red banner waving overhead. Written on it in fancy calligraphy was a single line of words not only congratulating Jian Chen for becoming the king of mercenaries, but it also notified everyone this inn was the inn he was staying at. Not only did it praise Jian Chen, but it also served to be an advertisement for the inn, improving its reputation. The owner of the inn had valiantly waived all of Jian Chen's expense and treated him as if he were the king of a nation. This type of respect was completely new to Jian Chen, and many times he thought that he had swapped lives with someone else. The gathering of the mercenaries was coming to a close, making the topic of Jian Chen being the king of mercenaries an extremely popular one. Since the owner of the inn proudly stated who was staying at his inn, the entire mercenary city had learned that Jian Chen was currently residing at the Take a Smell inn. Many people began to draw close in hopes of observing Jian Chen or with some other goal in mind, therefore, many of them had reserved a room in the inn to stay close by. In short, the shrewd owner of the inn had transformed his inn into an almost legendary one within Mercenary City. With his identity and his place of residence revealed, Jian Chen encountered many people arriving at his room, offering all sorts of invitations. In the end, Jian Chen couldn't help it anymore and barred his room shut. At the same time, he notified the owner that he required a few days to cultivate and did not want to be bothered. He forbid anyone from disturbing him, else he would move inns. The owner of the inn had been terrified by Jian Chen's words. It was with great difficulty that he managed to have such a deity stay at his inn. How could he let Jian Chen leave so easily? With that, he immediately agreed to Jian Chen's request and had some of the hired hands blockade the entire area for Jian Chen so that no one would be able to enter. Even a Heaven Saint Master was forbidden access. After all, this was Mercenary City, meaning not a single person would dare retaliate. Within the confines of his own room, Jian Chen poured all his efforts into understanding the illusionary flash. Although he had already grasped the basics of it, he hadn't mastered the introductory steps. The illusionary flash was exceptionally profound and was even more complex to understand than the heaven's stolen fortune. After a few days, Jian Chen had made very little progress, but with his speed he still managed to make a significant advancement. As Jian Chen's comprehension of the illusionary flash grew deeper and deeper, he began to feel that if he were to truly master the battle skill, then he would be able to flash forward large distances at a terrifying speed. 3 days passed by quickly. A member of the Mercenary City ruling party came forward to find Jian Chen before respectfully asking him to come out. Jian Chen followed the youth to a plaza near a palace-like building where he met another resolute-looking middle-aged man waiting for him. Honored Jian Chen, I, Elder Feng, have been commanded to guide you, please follow me. The middle-aged man spoke respectfully as he led Jian Chen to a space gate. Honored Jian Chen, you must travel through this space gate to get to the other side, the elder is waiting for you. The man spoke. With a word of thanks, Jian Chen stepped through the space gate. Jian Chen already had a good understanding of Mercenary City, so when he heard that he needed to travel through a space gate, he no longer found it strange since he was used to it already. With a flash of light, Jian Chen arrived on the other side of the space gate where a garden filled with sweet-smelling flowers could be seen. 50 meters ahead, 2 white-robed elders were sitting there playing chess. Jian Chen recognized both of the elders. One of them was the elder who had provided all of the tokens at first and had been the referee for the finals. The other member was the elder who had been cleaning the armory. Taking a look around, Jian Chen realized that he was standing in an ocean of flowers where countless of butterflies could be seen floating around. The place seemed as if it was a rare paradise on earth. Aside from the 2 elders, there was no one else around. Jian Chen had no idea what he should be doing, so he walked toward the elders slowly with light steps. Finally arriving close to the chess-playing elders, Jian Chen waited patiently for them to finish without a word. The 2 elders had serene looks on their faces as they concentrated completely on the chess game while completely ignoring Jian Chen's existence. After waiting for almost 2 hours, the 2 elders finally finished their game with helpless expressions. So it was a draw again? Elder Hui, it seems that even after deciding on a chess game, a decision was still not easily made. The elder who had been in the armory laughed as he began to place the chess pieces back in a box. The one called Elder Hui had a bitter smile on his face as well. That's right, while we don't have much to decide between when it comes to winning or losing, it is still a tough choice. Quickly, the 2 elders cleaned up the area before standing up. The elder who had been in the armory, cleaning, looked up at the sky. It's about time for us to go. Elder Hui nodded his head. Then let us be on our way, youngster, follow us. He directed his final words toward Jian Chen. Yes, senior. Jian Chen hurriedly cupped his hands in response. The 2 elders had to be peak heaven saint masters at the very least, especially the elder who had been a referee. Many times Jian Chen had fleeting thoughts that he was a saint ruler. To such a person, Jian Chen was but only a small dragonfly. Hearing Jian Chen call him senior, Elder Hui laughed. Youngster, you are called Jian Chen, correct? You may call me the 13th elder. As for the other elder, you may call him the 8th elder. There is no need to call us seniors. Yes, elders. Jian Chen cupped his hands hastily. At the same time, he had been shocked to hear that there was at least 18 elders within Mercenary City. Following the 2 elders through the flowery world, Jian Chen finally arrived at another large space gate several kilometers down the road. At that moment, Jian Chen found himself in a desolate area where a large sacrificial platform could be seen with thousands of memorial tablets. By the platform, there were already 8 people who were staring absent-mindedly at the tablets. From the 8 men, there was a single middle-aged man, a 40-year-old woman, an elder who looked to be a 70- or 80-year-old grandmother, and the rest were all quite elderly themselves. It was as if the 8 people had returned to their original state where their presence had been held back. Each one looked quite ordinary and did not have a single characteristic of being unique in any way. These 8 are the elders of Mercenary City, each one of them holding a decisive amount of power. The 8th elder spoke. Growing serious, Jian Chen took a look at each one of them to confirm their identities. The way to the Holy Land will open in an hour, wait for now. Aside from us elders, there are still a few men from Mercenary City that haven't arrived yet. The 13th elder spoke as he and the 8th elder both walked toward the platform where the memorial tablets were. Without a word, Jian Chen followed behind with a strange look at the memorial tablets and a curious mind. At this moment, a sound could be heard from a long distance away as a cyan-robed woman with a zither could be seen flying rapidly toward Jian Chen and the rest. The woman was quite tall and her hair shined on her cotton robes. Her clear and bright eyes could be seen shining in a way as if they could steal souls. Her fingers gently and tenderly caressed the strings of her zither. With each step, her slim waist swayed to the side gently. Although her appearance was not yet clear to see, the light radiating from her could only indicate that she was a matchless beauty that could cause nations to fall at the blink of an eye. The woman gently walked toward the elders from Mercenary City. This woman has come to greet everyone. The woman's voice was extremely charming and bewitching, almost as if it was the music from the ninth heaven instead of being from the secular world. Hearing the woman speak, Jian Chen instantly grew muddled in the head. He had never heard such a beautiful voice before. It was an unspeakable sensation that shouldn't exist in this world. Hearing the voice, the other elders slowly turned around before cupping their hands with a smile. It has been 50 years, but the heavenly enchantress still remains as beautiful as ever. One of the elders said. The cyan-robed woman smiled. 15th elder is too kind. Heavenly enchantress, it has been 50 years. You look even more beautiful than before. The middle-aged woman spoke as she looked at her with a breathtaking eye. The matchless saint of the zither, the heavenly enchantress. A beauty that would bring the moon to shame and can captivate even the birds and beasts. The fairy of the Tian Yuan continent with beautiful grace. With one word, hundreds of flowers grow ashamed of themselves. One of the elders laughed. Hearing this, the other men had small smiles on their faces as they too began to praise her. Heavenly enchantress? Saint of the zither? Could it be that this woman is the very same heavenly enchantress spoken of by the second miss of the Tianqin clan? Jian Chen thought with shock as he looked at the stunning woman, with a great wave of emotions running through his heart. Chapter 344, Entering the Holy Land. Judging from the news given to Jian Chen from the second miss of the Tianqin clan, the heavenly enchantress was a legendary figure on the Tian Yuan continent. She was capable of causing a nation to fall with her beauty that was deemed extremely unique. Her ability with the zither was peerless and possessed the zither of the demonic cry that could bring any other expert of the zither to shame with her songs. Even her opponents would be entranced by the melodic songs and would have their souls erased before their bodies would follow suit. Aside from that, the heavenly enchantress had prevented a war between two countries with a single ballad over the battlefield, causing the 100,000 soldiers on both sides to fall asleep for 3 days and 3 nights, a truly fearful feat. The heavenly enchantress had become a saint a long time ago, as well as being a saint ruler. A person like this was already standing at the top of the continent and overlook the others. What Jian Chen hadn't imagined was that he would be able to see the once-in-a-generation saint ruler, the heavenly enchantress. This was something that had moved Jian Chen's emotions. After all, a saint ruler was right in front of him, even more than that, but this woman was a living legend. The heavenly enchantress had her facial features hidden, but it did nothing to hide the outline and her body. Not only was she quite tall, but her beautiful body was indescribable. One could choke from her beauty, as it seemed as if she was not meant for this world. And even Jian Chen had found it hard to move his eyes away from her the moment he locked onto her, as if she was the only person in the world. The surrounding world seemed to have lost its color while she was the only focal point left. Then, the heavenly enchantress had discovered Jian Chen's gaze and turned to look at him with a surprised look on her face as she spoke with a heavenly voice. Elders, this must be the king of mercenaries, correct? The 8 elder laughed. The heavenly enchantress guesses correctly. He is called Jian Chen and is our king of mercenaries. Although he is only a first-cycle Earth Saint Master, his fighting strength is not weak at all. Nodding her head, the heavenly enchantress spoke no more, as if she lost her interest in him. Switching her gaze over to the memorial tablets, her eyes suddenly grew distracted. Seeing just how the elders were speaking to the heavenly enchantress as if they were her equal, Jian Chen was astonished. He couldn't help but think to the words the 13th elder had said. The Holy Land was a place that only saint rulers could enter, and if one who was not a saint ruler wanted to enter, then they would have to be the king of mercenaries. Then does this mean these elders here are all saint rulers at the very least? Even the 113th elder who had been in the armory is a saint ruler too then. Jian Chen thought to himself in shock. For there to be 10 saint rulers, Mercenary City was far too strong to believe then. Afterwards, the elders came up one after another to introduce themselves to Jian Chen. As Jian Chen grew to understand their identities, he realized that aside from the first two elders, the rest were all affiliated with other powers but had a friendly relation with Mercenary City. Right now, aside from Jian Chen, there was 26 people of both genders. The vast majority of the people there were past the age of 70, but there were still a few 40-years-old men. Yet, the person with the most attention was the heavenly enchantress who stood within a group of people that made her seem as if she was the crane amongst the chickens. Right now, there was still one more hour remaining when another person had flown through the air and joined with everyone else. This person was a youth who wore an expensive-looking white robe. His age was about 20 years old. He was also extraordinarily handsome on a scale far different than Jian Chen. However, while he was handsome, his face had a slight feminine aspect to it while Jian Chen had a masculine expression. The youth had a smiling expression that emitted light as he walked towards the heavenly enchantress and cupped his hands together. "Heavenly enchantress, it has been 50 years yet you've grown even more beautiful than before." The youth spoke as if infatuated with eyes that did nothing to show his adoration for her. The heavenly enchantress' eyes narrowed as a look of disgust could be seen. Not even looking at the youth, she spoke, "I thank Bijian Wang for his compliments." As if ignoring the attitude the heavenly enchantress was showing towards himself, the youth walked towards the heavenly enchantress with an infatuated expression towards her as he spoke once more, "Heavenly enchantress, we've known each other for 200 years by now, when will you invite me to your 3 sacred isles for a tour? I've heard that the 3 sacred isles is a paradise on earth without any strife and only a group of harmonious fishermen. This place has long since distanced itself with war as well. I've long since awaited for such a place. I, Bijian, have not fought for so long for such a reason." Each one of the elders looked on at this conversation with a helpless face. They all knew that Bijian had admired the heavenly enchantress. Back when Bijian had been a middle-aged man, when he had came across the heavenly enchantress, it had been love at first sight. Using a secret method, he had managed to rejuvenate his face back to his youth so that he could win her affection. Unfortunately for the love-starved wolf, the heavenly enchantress had ignored Bijian's enthusiastic attempts in trying to win her love. As time went on, however, she had eventually came to loathe him. "My apologies, Bijian Wang, my 3 sacred isles is accepting no one." Her voice was as cold as ice now. As if encouraged, Bijian Wang had an innocent look on his face. "Heavenly enchantress, could it be that even I am an outsider too?" "Naturally," spoke the heavenly enchantress without taking a second to think while simultaneously giving no face. Seeing the icy cold attitude of the heavenly enchantress, Bijian Wang had a helpless look on his face as he faced the skies and sighed. Afterwards, he walked by the heavenly enchantress' side without another sound. In his pursuit of her, even after so long without success, he did not give up. At that moment, the space on the platform suddenly began to tremble as a large amount of energy could felt gathering slowly within. "The time has come, the Holy Land is about to open." An elder of Mercenary City spoke. Everyone's gaze was sucked towards the space where the energy inside was growing richer and richer in density as well as intensity. At last, the space suddenly seemed as if it was starting to distort. A few moments later, the large amount of energy already gathered there had reached a limit, causing the space to rip apart to reveal a 3 feet wide door made of chaotic space that could not be seen through. "The gate to the Holy Land has opened, everyone please walk in." An elder of Mercenary City spoke with a respectful tone before walking slowly towards the gate and then disappearing into the chaos. Suddenly, the other elders of Mercenary City bowed towards the gate to the Holy Land before disappearing inside. When all of the elders from Mercenary City had entered through the gate, the saint rulers from outside the city bowed respectfully at the gate before walking through it as well. Jian Chen was the last one to enter, although he had no idea why everyone had bowed at the gate before entering, but he too followed suit and gave a bow to the gate before stepping into the chaotic gate to the Holy Land. Just as Jian Chen had reappeared, he had found himself standing on a bright ray of light. The atmosphere in this area was far different than before, as it felt as if it was rather moist. Taking a look around, Jian Chen was startled to find out there was no sky to be seen in this area. The entire area 100 meters above was a single slab of stone that extended as far as he could see, as if it was scooped from the stomach of a mountain. And right in the middle of the ceiling, a single crystal could be seen overhead with a dim light that seemed to fluctuate with energy. The eighth elder walked up to Jian Chen's side, prompting Jian Chen to ask in wonder, "Eighth elder, is this the Holy Land?" The eighth elder nodded his head, "That's correct, this is the Holy Land. I am sure that you can see that we are within the stomach of a mountain. The Holy Land is indeed here." The founder of Mercenary City, Mo Tianyun himself, had created a single space within the city as a way to reach the Holy Land. That would come to be known as the Gate to the Holy Land, and aside from that method, there is no alternative route to get here. Jian Chen took a look at the Holy Land. He had no idea that Mo Tianyun would somehow be connected to the Holy Land. Just then, the eighth elder looked at the floating crystal suspended overhead and slowly raised his hand as if he was being attracted by a sudden force of attraction. Slowly, the crystal began to slowly float towards the elder's hand before finally making contact with it. Observing the item, Jian Chen could see that it was a conical-shaped crystal around the size of a thumb and yet sparkled with a bright light from its transparent body. The energy that flowed from it was remarkably pure, as if the entire crystal itself was completely pure without a single taint. "Eighth elder, just what is this object?" Jian Chen couldn't help but ask curiously. Chapter 345, Cultivation in the Holy Land. This item is something that is produced within the Holy Land. Every 50 years, another one of these will be made. This is something we call Mercenary's Heart, and is given to every single king of mercenaries in secret every 50 years. The eighth elder explained. The Mercenary's Heart is made of the special energy condensed within the Holy Land. If it is absorbed, then not only will one's strength be increased rapidly, but it will also increase one's spirit. As long as one is not a saint ruler, then their strength will achieve a great amount of progress and improvement. Handing over the Mercenary's Heart to Jian Chen's hand, the eighth elder spoke, "Take this and swallow it before you go off somewhere and refine it. You will see that you will make an extreme amount of progress." "Yes, eighth elder." Jian Chen had no hesitation as he immediately placed the Mercenary's Heart into his mouth and swallowed. Bear in mind, the Mercenary's Heart must be refined within the Holy Land. If it is taken out of the Holy Land, then the energy gathered within the Mercenary's Heart will quickly evaporate. The eighth elder warned Jian Chen. "This one understands. I thank the eighth elder for his warning." Jian Chen cupped his hands in thanks as his heart was still reeling with shock. This Mercenary's Heart was far too strange if it couldn't be taken outside and was completely useless for a saint ruler. But the strangeness wasn't all too bad. It was still given freely as a reward to every king of mercenaries, which was coincidentally the only non-saint ruler qualified to enter the Holy Land. The Holy Land has a total of 4 areas. In the first area, the time flow goes 10 times faster than the outside world. 10 months in there is 1 month in the outside world. If you wish to try to refine your saint force or try to comprehend any heaven-tier battle skill, the first area is your best choice. The second area is best for understanding the 6 elements of the world. In that area, one could accomplish twice the work for half the effort, making improvements to one's strength quite rapid and effective. The third and fourth area is where the best part of the Holy Land are. The Holy Land's most precious items can be found there, such as saint-tier battle skills and even techniques of a senior generation that is comparable to a saint-tier battle skill. Those not of the saint ruler realm will find it hard to comprehend, and thus is useless to you. The fourth area is where we elders of Mercenary City have left behind all that we have learned and realized over our years. To you, they are useless because you have no hopes in even coming in contact with it, let alone being able to comprehend the absolute profoundness of them. Thus, the area that suits you best is the first area. You should cultivate there for half a year. It'll be the same as if cultivating for 5 years in the outside world. The 8th elder explained to Jian Chen. He had been the announcer for the gathering of the mercenaries, so explanations had been something he was in charge of. He had a responsibility to explain matters regarding the Holy Land clearly and did not treat Jian Chen with any special consideration. After he had finished talking, the 8th elder left Jian Chen's line of sight, leaving him the only person around. Taking an observation of the place around himself, Jian Chen had noticed that the other 20 elders had already disappeared from sight, so that he was the last person here. Not wanting to squander any of his precious time, he heeded the 8th elder's words and began to travel for the first area so that he could begin refining the mercenary's heart. The very moment that Jian Chen had entered the first area, Jian Chen felt that the space within this place was completely abnormal, that made his body feel quite unsuited for, as if the area was objecting to Jian Chen's presence. This must be the first area where time goes 10 times as fast. Jian Chen thought to himself as his feet continued onwards and took him to the abyss, where he could feel the energy density grow even heavier. As soon as Jian Chen had reached the deepest parts of this place, he took a look around only to see a cyan-robed person sitting 50 meters away. It was the heavenly enchantress. Standing from afar, Jian Chen couldn't help but look at her back, which concealed not a single part of her stunning body. With only a smallest amount of hesitation, Jian Chen slowly walked towards the heavenly enchantress. As he drew 30 meters closer, Jian Chen suddenly felt the energy in the area suddenly grow richer as it pulled towards the heavenly enchantress body. The speed in which it was being pulled increased, and without any explanations, Jian Chen knew that the area the heavenly enchantress was in was the core of the first area. Jian Chen stopped 10 meters away from her before sitting down. While he knew that the closer he got to where the heavenly enchantress was, the richer the energy would be, but at the same time, he did not dare to get too close to her. Senior, the Holy Land Saint-Tier battle skill and other cultivational insights left behind by our predecessors, why haven't you gone to find them? Jian Chen asked the heavenly enchantress with confusion. With so many saint rulers here, a Saint-Tier battle skill and the insights from those of generations past was an undeniable treasure. But the heavenly enchantress had decided to come to this first area to refine her saint force, unlike the others. But the heavenly enchantress continued to sit down with her eyes closed as if she hadn't heard Jian Chen at all. After half a day of waiting without a response, Jian Chen had figured that an expert of the saint ruler would be extremely arrogant and would not even stoop down to a level where they would waste words with an earth saint master. Without bothering to ask any more questions, Jian Chen immediately closed his eyes and began to refine the mercenary's heart. I follow the path of the zither and use sound to fight. My road is different from the others, their battle skills and insights are unsuitable for me and provide no help. Just as Jian Chen had closed his eyes, the voice of the heavenly enchantress could be heard ringing in the air like the sounds of the song of heaven. Flashing open his eyes, Jian Chen realized that the heavenly enchantress had still not yet moved from her spot, but a cyan-colored mist had blocked his line of sight. Without even waiting for a response from Jian Chen, the heavenly enchantress continued to speak, "So you are the king of mercenaries. I am sure you have already obtained the mercenary's heart. It is a rare treasure that will surely bring about a great deal of change to your strength with fragments of the profound mysteries of the world inside it." The heavenly enchantress spoke with her eyes closed. I thank Senior for her words. Jian Chen cupped his hands together. There is no need to call me Senior, just call me Heavenly Enchantress. She spoke without the initial coldness from before. Afterwards, the Heavenly Enchantress spoke no more even after Jian Chen had asked several questions. With a dejected look, Jian Chen began to refine the mercenary's heart once more. The mercenary's heart was extremely magical. Absorbing and refining the energy within it was fast enough for his speed and spirit to make leaps and bounds, almost as if the mercenary's heart was hiding some sort of strange energy that Jian Chen could use to blend into his own body and strengthen him. Furthermore, there were even some of the fragments that the heavenly enchantress had spoken about. With 1 month inside the Holy Land being equal to 10 months in the outside world, Jian Chen had already spent 2 months inside before the mercenary's heart was finally refined. His strength by that point had made an extreme change, bringing him up to the 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master realm, and was already on the verge of making the breakthrough to the 4th cycle. After this increment of strength, Jian Chen's spirit had also made a significant change. Compared to before, his spirit was 3 times as big as before, a drastic change that had made Jian Chen unbelievably happy. And once the mercenary's heart had been absorbed, Jian Chen's mind had many different slivers of mysterious rays of light that were hard to grab hold of. These rays of light were seemingly the profound mysteries of the world, yet at the same time, they were also something different, causing Jian Chen to feel confused. Although Jian Chen could understand that these were the fragments that the heavenly enchantress had talked about, he still couldn't fully understand it. It could be said that he had a mysterious treasure but was unable to find the key to unlock it and comprehend the secrets within. 2 months later, Jian Chen had opened his eyes once more only to see the heavenly enchantress still in the same place with her eyes closed as well. Standing up, Jian Chen had completely refined the mercenary heart and had now wanted to take a look at the other 3 areas. Leaving without a sound, Jian Chen had arrived at the 2nd area, which had 6 different caves. Each cave was different and had 6 different types of elements: light, dark, fire, earth, water, and wind. Deciding upon the light attribute cave, Jian Chen saw that the inside of the cave was extraordinarily bright, giving a sensation of dryness. It was almost as if the sunlight had been intensified within this cave, but unlike the normal rays of light, the light here was giving him a painful sensation, almost as if the light was trying to kill him. Within the light-filled cave, Jian Chen could feel an abundance of radiant saint force. Radiant saint masters were majestic within the Tianyuan continent, since they could use the radiant saint force to heal the injuries of others. Some of the stronger radiant saint masters could even bring a person back to life and violate the natural order of the heavens. This type of radiant saint master would be by no means a weak individual. On the other hand were the radiant warriors, who were given the nicknames of being undying. Radiant warriors were filled with radiant saint force and were exceedingly rare. Although they could control the radiant saint force, they followed the way of the hegemon, which contrasted against the radiant saint master's way of the king. They could only heal themselves and could not heal anyone else. Radiant warriors were also able to use their radiant saint force to harm others as an attack. If used on their own bodies, it would heal them, but if used on someone else, it would cause damage instead. Thus, in terms of healing, they were not equal to a radiant saint master. As for the light attribute cave, Jian Chen could feel both the soft rays of radiant saint force as well as the hard tyrannical ray of radiant saint force. So with the harsh rays of light stabbing into his body, Jian Chen would naturally feel a sharp stabbing sensation. Not only could light help men, but it could also kill them. Chapter 346, Saint Tier Battle Skill. Jian Chen was a Radiant Saint Master and not a Radiant Warrior in that regard. A Radiant Saint Master succeeded in using their spirit to augment and strengthen their control over the Radiant Saint force in the world to heal those that needed it. A Radiant Warrior cultivated like any other cultivator in order to fight and improve their own strength. Spirit was secondary to them since it was absolutely unrelated to improving their strength. Thus, the light attribute cave would not be extremely effective for him since he wasn't a light attributed cultivator. A Radiant Saint Master and Radiant Warrior had only a slight difference in name, but they walked 2 different paths of cultivation. One focused on the spirit and the other focused on saint force. He quickly left the light attributed cave. Jian Chen knew that the light attributed element inside was meant for people to comprehend, but it would not serve him any use. Not only that, but he couldn't handle the painful stinging sensation. Afterward, Jian Chen visited the other caves. Aside from some small increase in his understanding, since his inner saint force had no attribute, he felt no connection to any of the caves. Quickly, Jian Chen arrived at the third area, which was a single huge mountain wall. There were 8 abnormally large caverns positioned on the cave walls. While most of the caves were located very high up on the wall, the lowest cave was only 30 meters high. The highest one was over 100 meters up, reaching almost to the top of the cave. The entire wall was as smooth as a shiny mirror with no footholds, meaning that those without strength would find it impossible to climb. Above the entrances to these caverns were a few words. The very first cavern had the words, Second Heavenly Layer Saint King Yunyang Wudi's Remnants. The top 3 caves had the words, Ninth Heavenly Layer Saint King Tian Qinyu's Remnants. Ninth Heavenly Layer Saint King Shui Wuya's Remnants. Ninth Heavenly Layer Saint King Langxi Xieshuan. Jian Chen's eyes swept across the caves with awestruck fascination. These 8 caves all held the remnants of Saint Kings. The topmost 3 caves had even housed Saint Kings at the 9th heavenly layer. Could it be that all of these Saint Kings were from Mercenary City? Jian Chen muttered. It was only now that he realized the power he had seen in Mercenary City was the tip of the iceberg. Mercenary City towered over the Tian Yuan continent for countless of years as the pinnacle city. Not only did they have several Saint Ruler experts, but they also had some Saint King overseers. This type of colossal power was akin to a ferocious war beast that no one had the possibility of killing. Suddenly, Jian Chen couldn't help but think back to when he was in that isolated space collecting tokens for the competition. When he had been in the shrine, Ming Dong's uncle Tian had been a Saint Ruler 5,000 years ago. Could it be possible for him to have made a breakthrough to become a Saint King after so long? Or maybe even a Saint Emperor? Since he had been residing within the isolated space along with the place used for the competition, could he too be a member of Mercenary City? Sucking in a deep breath, he slowly started to try and calm himself down. With a single leap, he landed within the lowest cavern. The passageway within the cavern was quite long and curvaceous. After walking about 300 meters, Jian Chen finally arrived at a dead end, which was a single spacious cave around 50 meters in width. There wasn't any sources of light, but what should have been a dark cave somehow was bright. Similar to the light outside. But the source of this light could not be found, giving this cave another sense of mystery. All around the cave were various paintings of men. Each painting was almost lifelike, and in each painting, the person drawn within seemed to be performing some sort of graceful movement. Within the center of the cave, 3 men were sitting idly while staring at the paintings with a stiffness similar to that of a statue. Not a single hair could be seen moving, and within the 3 of them, Jian Chen recognized the 13th elder. Could it be this painting portrays one of the legendary Saint Tier battle skills? Jian Chen thought. Walking toward the 3 men, he followed suit and began to stare fixedly at the painting. But after half a day, he had failed to understand anything from the painting. Jian Chen, how did you come to be here? Did the 8th elder not tell you to stay at the first area to cultivate? Suddenly, Jian Chen could hear the wizened voice of the 13th elder, who spoke with shock. 13th elder, I was only taking a look around. I heard from the 8th elder that the 3rd area had a Saint Tier battle skill. Could this painting be it? Jian Chen asked. Since he was afraid of disturbing the other 2 men, Jian Chen spoke in a quiet voice. Correct, this is indeed a Saint Tier battle skill. Since you are here, I presume that you have seen the other caverns. This is one of the riches of Mercenary City. In total, there are 8 Saint Tier battle skills, the equivalent to the 8 senior elders of Mercenary City. Each one of them reached the Saint King realm, and these Saint Tier battle skills were created by them. The 13th elder spoke. 13th elder, with these paintings all depicting a Saint Tier battle skill, I don't see anything for cultivation methods, just why is that? Jian Chen asked with confusion. A Saint Tier battle skill is different from a Heaven Tier battle skill. There are no cultivation methods, each advancement from this point on is dependent on oneself. The use of a saint-tier battle skill is to draw upon the energy of the world. So to comprehend and understand a saint-tier battle skill, one must be a saint ruler at the very least. That is because once one makes the breakthrough to become a saint ruler, they will begin to understand the profound mysteries of the world and grasp the energy of the world. Jian Chen, a saint-tier battle skill isn't something that you can understand right now. You are merely wasting your time here. Hurry on back to the first area and cultivate. You are the king of mercenaries for this time's gathering of the mercenaries. Wait until you become a saint ruler and come back for the next gathering of the mercenaries to enter the Holy Land once again. The 13th elder spoke. I thank the 13th elder for his kind intentions. I had only wished to see this saint-tier battle skill, and even though I was unable to understand it, I was still able to further my insights. Jian Chen smiled. It is up to you. You only have half a year's time, I hope you treasure it wisely. The elder said before turning away. Jian Chen kept calm and looked back toward the first painting. Now that he knew that these paintings were saint-tier battle skills, his attitude toward them changed completely. He no longer looked at them with a simple gaze and instead began to look at them intently so that not even the expressions were neglected. As he looked at each and every movement within the diagrams, Jian Chen would occasionally feel a small revelation appear within his mind. It was as if he were on the verge of understanding something but was unable to grasp the final step and grew confused once more. Seeing just how each one of these movements and forms had some sort of secret, Jian Chen was unable to completely understand just what was the purpose, leaving him quite vexed. With each observation, Jian Chen could feel his thoughts grow more and more chaotic as he felt his mind expand. It was almost as if his head had become a constantly expanding balloon, and since he couldn't bear the air expanding within, his head was hurting badly. Jian Chen knew that this saint-tier battle skill was the cause, therefore he immediately turned away and sat on the ground. He tried to think of nothing, emptying his mind of everything as he fell into a deep meditation. After an unknown amount of time, Jian Chen had finally regained control of his mind, allowing him to open his eyes and stare at the painting once more. Now Jian Chen had a better understanding of the first painting. Slowly, he could understand that the people within the painting were like the heavens. They were representatives of the world, their movements were fused together with the world. Each move contained a profound mystery of the world, and each strike contained a profound theory, but that was something Jian Chen didn't understand. However, when Jian Chen had understood the first part, he could suddenly feel that this one strike displayed on the picture was quite simple and he could work it out. In one moment, he could feel that this move embodied many things, a simple strike that could have countless of variations. In another moment, he could feel that this move was akin to nature and harmonized the body with the world before shaping it. In the next moment, he could feel that it contained a terrifying amount of power that could scare demons and shatter the world. With such a simple-looking painting, Jian Chen was able to understand so many pieces of information. If the other saint rulers were to figure out that Jian Chen was able to grasp this much, their eyes would pop open in shock, and they would look at him with inconceivable looks. For an Earth Saint Master to gain so many insights after looking at a saint-tier battle skill, was an impossible task. If Jian Chen were to later have a grasp on the profound mysteries of the world, then understanding this saint-tier battle skill was not too far out of his reach. In fact, establishing his own saint-tier battle skill wouldn't be impossible either. As soon as this bit of information had traveled to Jian Chen's mind, his mind instantly grew chaotic once more as it swelled up, threatening to fracture at any moment. Jian Chen immediately closed his eyes once more and forced himself to calm down. After calming down, Jian Chen methodically inspected the paintings over and over again. However, the only information he could gather from them was the fact that these simple paintings seemed to be filled with many mysteries. No matter how much he looked at them, he was unable to progress. Thus, he could only stop here. If he tried to push on, he would get a splitting headache, his thoughts would go berserk, and his thought processes would slow down. It seems that being unable to grasp the mysteries of the world causes one to be unable to understand the Saint-Tier battle skill. I can sense that this move is filled with many things, but I cannot understand the concepts. Could it be that the profound mysteries of the world are not enough? Jian Chen thought to himself. With one of the legendary Saint-Tier battle skills right in front of him but he himself unable to comprehend the meaning behind it, left Jian Chen feeling unwell. Chapter 347. Leaving the Holy Land, Jian Chen left the first cavern, and visited the other 7 caverns, each one contained its own Saint-Tier battle skill. Without any exceptions, each battle skill was illustrated on paintings that required the cultivator to comprehend it by themselves with no instructions. A Saint-Tier battle skill was not like a Heaven-Tier battle skill. Heaven-Tier battle skills were written using words, and required only a strong amount of practice in order to grasp the fundamentals. They also required time to initialize. A Saint-Tier battle skill was completely different. This required one's own ability to understand. So if one was unable to comprehend the Saint-Tier battle skill in their hand, it would be useless. A Saint-Tier battle skill was complicated and mysterious. A single Saint-Tier battle skill could have hundreds of paintings, and each form depicted on them could hold many different mysteries. Some only had 3 paintings, but each one held mysteries that could shatter the heavens and annihilate the earth. When looking at the pictures, the people drawn within the paintings seemed almost as if they were alive. Each one carried a world-shaking power. If one didn't have a certain base level of strength, they would not be able to endure this incorporeal presence. Even Jian Chen had felt an indescribable amount of power coming from the paintings, causing him to spit out blood. Even just the grace of the paintings was enough to inflict damage on Jian Chen. After such an event, Jian Chen had a stronger understanding of Saint-Tier battle skills. He knew what realm he was currently in, and that this Saint-Tier battle skill was beyond his level. If he were to never become a saint ruler or grasp the profound mysteries of the world, then the time he had spent trying to understand the Saint-Tier battle skills would all be for naught. Leaving the 3rd area, Jian Chen arrived at the 4th. The 4th area was simply a large study room with a table and chairs. Bookshelves could be seen everywhere with books filling up each shelf, bound with the animal leather of magical beasts. There was a strange energy that filled the area attempting to prevent the books from corroding with time. These books were filled with insights from the previous generations of cultivators. While Jian Chen wouldn't be able to benefit much from them now, he could still memorize them. Then, he would be able to think back to them when his own comprehension was better. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen had spent 3 months within the 4th area. Jian Chen had spent the entire time reading the insights from every single area possible within the realm of cultivation. While it was of no use to him now, they would come in handy later. During the days within the 4th area, Jian Chen had also tried to establish his foundation even more. The experiences within the books he had read were many, and the amount of insights he could still glean from them were plenty. Those under the Heaven Saint Master realm would absorb the vital energy of the world to increase both their saint weapon and personal strength, but there was a barrier from the Great Saint Master to Earth Saint Master realm. If one succeeded in crossing the barrier, then they would become like the dragon, but if they failed, they would degenerate to a cripple who couldn't cultivate. Cultivating as an Earth Saint Master was an extremely simple task with no complications. As long as one reached the 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level, one could make the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master by the usage of the world's vital energy. With a small step, they would become a Heaven Saint Master. Heaven Saint Masters were able to fly through the air with the use of their inner saint force to levitate. With the world's energy, they could fly through the air without much of a drain to themselves. So, if one wanted to be a Heaven Saint Master, it was necessary to have a grasp on the vital energy of the world. The last part he grasped was the threshold to become a saint ruler. Although making the breakthrough to become a saint ruler wasn't as perilous as becoming an Earth Saint Master, the chances of making the breakthrough were many times harder. That was because if one wanted to make the breakthrough to become a saint ruler, they must have a fundamental grasp of the profound mysteries in the world. There were many secrets hidden within these profound mysteries, and they were the reason why there were so few saint rulers among the Tianyuan continent. This layer of cultivation was far away from the level Jian Chen was currently at. Leaving the fourth area, Jian Chen still had another month left in the Holy Land. During this final month, he had planned on going back to the first area to continue his cultivation for what would be equivalent to 10 months of actual time. Arriving at the first area, the heavenly enchantress was still sitting in her original spot without any signs of moving. Sitting 10 meters away from her so as to not disturb her, Jian Chen sat down with 2 Class 5 monster cores. Although the energy within this area was quite rich, the energy within a Class 5 monster core was denser. Now that he was a peak 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master, he was only a small hop away from the 4th cycle. The energy within the Holy Land is different from the outside world. The energy in here contains fragments of the profound mysteries of the world. Although they are minuscule, they should still provide a large amount of help to you. Just as Jian Chen had taken out his Class 5 monster cores, the heavenly enchantress' heavenly voice could be heard once more. Pausing in shock, Jian Chen didn't think that the Holy Land's energy would contain the mysteries of the world. Cupping his hands to signify his thanks to the heavenly enchantress, he put the Class 5 monster cores back into his space belt and began to cultivate once more with the energy from the Holy Land. Suddenly, the first area's energy began to rush toward Jian Chen in a frantic craze while Jian Chen continued to accept all of it into his body like water into a whale. At the current pace, his absorption rate was no slower than the heavenly enchantress. With the help of the sword spirits, Jian Chen was able to absorb both the world qi and the energy within the monster core at a rate several times faster than anyone else. Ever since he'd first awakened the sword spirits in Huang Village, they had stopped stealing energy from Jian Chen without his permission. Therefore, the energy was now entirely absorbed by Jian Chen alone. The heavenly enchantress' eyes flew open as she realized just how fast Jian Chen was absorbing the energy. After staring in shock for a few moments, she closed her eyes once more. Half a moment later, Jian Chen's face broke out into a smile in the middle of his cultivation. As expected, he discovered that the energy from the Holy Land was indeed different from that from outside. There were many things he didn't understand mixed into it, like whatever was contained in the strange energy from Mercenary City. These were all impossible for him to comprehend. They seemed like rings of light that flashed in his head fleetingly, unable to be grasped. Such things were no longer strange to Jian Chen, these were precisely the profound mysteries of the world, the level that he could not yet touch. This realization made Jian Chen happy. Spending the rest of his time in a deep cultivational meditation, he began to absorb some of the fragments of the profound mysteries of the world. Originally, he had planned to try and study the illusionary flash, but with this newfound discovery, he completely ignored that previous notion. Quickly, Jian Chen had spent the last 10 months of his time in the first area of the Holy Land. His strength had already reached the 4th cycle Earth Saint Master, and in those 10 months, Jian Chen's comprehension of the profound mysteries of the world had substantially increased. His mind was like a world of spirits and the profound mysteries were like a divine light that would occasionally shine. Sometimes, a strange thought would occur in his mind, but Jian Chen had never been able to fully grasp just what the thought meant. At times, his thoughts would be vague as he tried to comprehend them, but they were mysteries for a reason. With the help of the fragments he had already, Jian Chen was able to establish a strong foundation of the profound mysteries. In his current state, even if he were to absorb any more of the fragments, he wouldn't be able to understand the current fragments. Today was the day that half a year had passed. The 8th elder appeared by Jian Chen's side and spoke, "Jian Chen, it has been half a year. Follow me and I'll guide you out." Sighing with some regret, Jian Chen had finally recognized the benefits of the Holy Land. The first area was capable of allowing him more time to understand the profound mysteries. Now that he had a good understanding of the benefits of this place, he was reluctant to leave. If only I could just stay here. Jian Chen sighed at that thought. He knew that his wish was impossible, thus he could only follow the eighth elder and depart from the first area. Seeing Jian Chen's reluctant face, the eighth elder couldn't help but laugh. Jian Chen, are you unhappy to leave the Holy Lands? This place is truly a treasured area if even saint rulers are attracted to this place so badly. You needn't worry, with you being this time's king of mercenaries, you'll have an opportunity to enter the Holy Lands once more at the next gathering of the mercenaries after you become a saint ruler. Each time the Holy Land opens every 50 years, you may remain inside for 5 years. One can stay in here for 5 years? Then why was it that I am only able to stay for half a year? Jian Chen asked with confusion. The eighth elder laughed. Only a saint ruler is qualified to stay for 5 years. Even the number 1 ranking person in the gathering of the mercenaries is only qualified to stay for half a year. That is the rules of our mercenary city. Jian Chen could find no faults in those words. The Holy Land was their territory after all. Anyone that wanted to enter the Holy Land had no right to dictate the rules as they personally saw fit. Afterward, the eighth elder took Jian Chen to a space gate and left the Holy Land with him. Chapter 348, Being watched. Crossing through the space gate, Jian Chen found himself in the flower garden once more. Flowers bloomed everywhere within a 50-meter radius, and the pavilion in the center towered over him as if it were bathing within the field of flowers. Jian Chen wasn't unfamiliar with this place. He had seen it once before. This was where he saw the 8th and 13th elder play chess. A flying figure quickly made its way toward Jian Chen before falling to the ground. It was a frail-looking middle-aged man that seemed quite scholarly, one who enjoyed reading more than anything else. This man wore white robes with grandiose stitching and his eyes shone brightly with liveliness. Seeing how this man had just been soaring through the sky, Jian Chen could tell that he was a heaven saint master. Without any neglect in respect, the man cupped his hands together and spoke politely, "You must be Jian Chen." Quickly swallowing the surprise back down his throat, Jian Chen nodded his head, "Correct, I am he. The elder ordered me to come and collect you, please follow me." The middle-aged man replied. With a wave of his hand, Jian Chen suddenly felt a formidable amount of energy envelop his entire body before he began to levitate through the air along with the middle-aged man. Could this heaven saint master be able to control the energy of the world? Jian Chen couldn't help but think about this. Although he was calm on the outside, he was furiously trying to figure out how the energy that was enveloping him worked. The man was only traveling 10 meters above the ground, but the speed in which they were traveling was still very fast. Not long later, Jian Chen and the man reached yet another space gate. Descending down to the ground, the middle-aged man spoke, "You can leave from here." Jian Chen returned the way he came, through the space gate. He found himself in the plaza where the gathering of the mercenaries had taken place. Suddenly, a person came walking out from one of the halls. It was the crane-haired elder. Handing him a badge, the elder said, "This is the emblem of the king of mercenaries. It is made of a special material and has been interwoven with arrays so that when Saint Force is used to activate it, the vital energy of the world in a 10-kilometer distance will be absorbed into it for later cultivational usage." Jian Chen's heart leaped into his throat as he immediately thought about the Flame Mercenaries and Changyang clan. This would definitely be a great boon for the two. Taking the emblem carefully into his own hands, Jian Chen left the halls under the supervision of the commanding officer and walked out onto the streets. Jian Chen tilted his head up to look at the sun overhead with a happy expression. After spending a long time within the Holy Land with no sun, Jian Chen felt comforted by the sun rays basking his body in its light. By now, half a year had already passed since the gathering of the mercenaries had ended and the entire mercenary city had already gone back to its normal everyday life with the exception of the season being hotter than before. However, the steady stream of people going in and out of the city was still there. Mercenary City was the holy city for mercenaries and merchants alike. Each of the 4 seasons was always a busy season and many people traveled to the city. By now, winter had already passed and summer was fast approaching. With the scorching sun bearing down on the ground, it was already like the top of a burning slab of iron. Since Jian Chen had spent a long time within the dark and damp holy grounds, he quickly found himself dry and thirsty. Walking to the middle plaza of Mercenary City, the plaza was now a 4-way intersection for everyone to cross. It was not as lively as it was half a year ago, but it still had many magical beast riders walking on the streets. As for the founder of Mercenary City Mo Tianyun, his statue stood tall and stared up toward the sky with a real-life-like figure. By now, Jian Chen had already stored away some fragments of the profound mysteries of the world within his head. The statue of Mo Tianyun was completely different before compared to his eyes now. To him, the statue seemed to be completely filled with an endlessly profound mystery. Even the seemingly normal hands of the statue were filled with a strange substance that made the statue seem more lifelike. At the same time, it seemed as if the statue was harmonized with the world completely. After a moment of careful observation, Jian Chen finally regained his bearings and respectfully bowed toward the statue before leaving the area. His understanding of Mercenary City was growing more and more, causing Jian Chen's respect of Mo Tianyun to deepen as well. Aimlessly roaming around the streets, Jian Chen finally entered an inn so that he could sit down and eat a meal. After residing within the Holy Land for so long, he hadn't a single thing to eat in ages. It was already afternoon and past the regular eating time, so the inn was relatively clean with Jian Chen as the only customer. At that moment, 3 other men came walking in before sitting down at a table. "Waitress, some wine and meat over here." Staring at the 3 men, Jian Chen looked back to his own table and decided on what to eat. "Hey Z, just wait until we finish our mission, then our mercenary group will become a B-ranked group." Another man spoke to the black-skinned man who had talked first. The dark-skinned man nodded his head. "Right, we were only a C-ranked group 3 years ago. But 3 years later, we've accomplished many missions and our own merits aren't bad either. Just wait for this mission to be finished, and we will truly become a B-ranked group." The 3 men were seasoned mercenaries. While they ate, they would occasionally talk about other mercenary-related affairs while simultaneously looking at Jian Chen every so often. After some time, Jian Chen had ate and drank his fill. With a satisfied clap, he spoke, "Waitress, is there a room free to stay for the night? I would like to reserve one." Jian Chen spoke as he placed a purple coin on the table. "Yes, sir, we'll prepare a room for you right away, please wait one moment." The waitress retrieved the purple coin with a smile and immediately left to make preparations. With a look toward the 3 other men, Jian Chen had a meaningful smile on his face as he walked over. "Fellow friends, what might your names be?" Jian Chen's sudden movement toward them had caught the 3 off guard, but they quickly recovered and had one man cup his hands with a smile. "This one is called Jian Hua, and these 2 are my close friends, He Zi and Bao Yu." I could tell that fellow brother's chi was quite unordinary. "What might be your name?" "I am called Jian Chen." Jian Chen smiled. Hearing that, the 3 men instantly grew shocked. With an incredulous look, the one called Jian Hua turned to look at Jian Chen with doubt. "Could you mean that you are the Jian Chen that won the gathering of the mercenaries half a year ago?" "I am he." Jian Chen's smile had a strange look to it. "Ah, so you are Jian Chen, how disrespectful of me." "Truly disrespectful. Brother Jian Chen's name is a name that is as well known as a thunderclap to the ears. Who would have known that the 3 of us would be as fortunate to be able to come across Brother Jian Chen today?" Jian Hua boomed outward with a respectful manner as the other 2 hurriedly cupped their hands in a respectful salute. Seeing their attitudes, Jian Chen revealed a cold smile on his face. "Fellow friends, spare me your theatrics. Speak of your plans right now." Hearing this, the three men looked at Jian Chen with shock and vacant stares. Shaking his crew-cut hair-styled head, Jian Hua spoke with confusion, "Brother Jian Chen, what are you talking about?" Jian Chen snorted, "You three have been following me for a good while, do you think that I wouldn't know? Speak of your purpose, I hate wasting time." Still staring blankly at Jian Chen, Jian Hua could only smile as he continued to speak, "Brother Jian Chen is quite the jokester. How would we have followed you? This meeting was a coincidence. If my instinct isn't wrong, then you three are either from the Jie clan or Shi family." Jian Chen's eyes grew cold as his sharp eyes pierced into them with his gaze. The three men continued to stare blankly while Jian Hua forced a helpless smile on his face. "Brother Jian Chen, I'm afraid I still don't understand. Might have you mistaken us for someone else?" Seeing how their faces didn't seem to be hiding anything, Jian Chen knew that asking any more questions would be pointless. Without wasting any more time, he left for the second floor of the inn. Right as Jian Chen had disappeared, the shocked expressions of the three men instantly grew dark as they leaned closed to each other. "I didn't think he would be that vigilant, he already spotted us from far away," Jian Hua whispered. "What should we do now?" Hazy asked. "What else could we do? Let's report back to the elder." Afterward, the three men placed a purple coin down and left the inn at a fast pace. Within a grand-looking inn, the furious expression of an elder stared at the three men in front of him as he pointed and shouted curses at them, "Useless. Absolutely useless. All I see is a pile of garbage right in front of me. You've let the person you were trailing see you, just what use are you for other than eating?" These three men were Jian Hua, Hazy, and Bao Yu. Each one of them had a pale face as they shivered in fear and didn't dare to utter a single sound. "Elder, this isn't our fault, our target was already extremely careful and far too powerful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been noticed." Jian Hua spoke with a quavering voice of fear in hopes of placating the elder's anger. At that moment, the doors to the room opened as another elder came walking in. Upon seeing the three men in front of him, the new-coming elder narrowed his eyes and spoke, "Fourth elder, what happened?" These three pieces of garbage were easily detected by Jian Chen after his return from the Holy Lands. With their presences being detected, all of our plans have now gone up in smoke. The fourth elder exploded with anger as he swore once more. Chapter 349, A Conversation. Hearing the words of the fourth elder, the newly arrived elder grew serious as he whispered, "It can't be, although we haven't come across him before, he was still able to spot us. That is an exceptionally smart mind with a cautious character. Now that he knows we are watching him, unless he is sure he can escape our grasp, he will definitely refuse to leave Mercenary City. But that's just it. Our plans were to wait for Jian Chen to leave Mercenary City before we come and reclaim our items. But at the most critical moment, these three pieces of trash ruined it all. Now Jian Chen knows that we are watching him, he won't dare leave the city now." The fourth elder spoke. If I had known Jian Chen's skills at detection were so high, I would have tracked him myself. Now that the situation is like this, it's quite troublesome. If Jian Chen continues to stay within Mercenary City, then we won't be able to make a move at all. The elder spoke with a sigh. "Third elder, you are the intelligent one, what should we do in this case?" The fourth elder calmed himself down. The third elder's eyebrows creased together in thought as he muttered, "This Jian Chen was able to become the king of mercenaries with relative ease, a person like this is by no means ordinary. Since he knows that we are currently watching him, there is no need for us to be secretive about it anymore. Third elder, let us go talk with him and see if there is any way for him to hand over the seal of Treasure Mountain to us. As for the death of the third young lord, we can wait another day. At the very least, we can recover the ruler armament." The fourth elder nodded his head, "I thought as much." AI, the family head was far too greedy. If only he hadn't wanted the third lord to try and take the Solunar Bao from the Huang family during the competition. In the end, we didn't obtain the Bao and the seal of Treasure Mountain was lost to us. This is truly a disgrace. Forget it, fourth elder. There's no use trying to think any more about this matter. Right now we should meet with Jian Chen and hope that we can reclaim the ruler armament. Here, eat this. The third elder spoke as he handed a red pill toward the fourth elder. The fourth elder had a lot of trust in the third elder, and so without any more questions he took the pill and swallowed it. Afterward, the two elders headed toward the inn Jian Hua had explicitly said housed Jian Chen. At this moment, Jian Chen was on his bed and was studying the illusionary flash once more. The moment he sensed the elders, he opened his eyes and stared at them. The third elder stared at Jian Chen for a moment before paying a compliment. No wonder you are the king of mercenaries with such a talent like this. Jian Chen, we are from the Shi family. If our third Lord Shi Xiangran has ever offended you in the past, we would sincerely like to apologize to you and hope that you do not take this personally. Since the other party had not been rude to him, Jian Chen returned the smile. Senior is too polite. For such a small matter, I, Jian Chen, have already forgotten about it. As long as no one else looks for trouble with me, then I will not recklessly declare anyone as my enemy. The fourth elder nearly rolled his eyes at Jian Chen's words as he cursed him internally. Jian Chen had killed their third lord and had also stolen the Shi family's seal of Treasure Mountain heirloom, therefore, it was only natural that the Shi family would chase after Jian Chen. The third elder laughed. Brother Jian Chen is really courageous. I wonder if you are willing to return the seal of Treasure Mountain to our Shi family? We should exchange our weapons of war for gifts of silk. After all, the seal of Treasure Mountain cannot be activated without a combination of our Shi family's blood and a special, secret technique. It's useless in your possession, and it would make our Shi family feel extreme resent toward you. This will greatly impact your relationship with us. Can you please consider our offer? Naturally, if you are willing to return the seal of Treasure Mountain, then we will naturally give you fair compensation for it. The third elder's words were sweet to hear and he held no ill intent behind them. Even his tone had been calm and cordial without any sense of anger. Unfortunately, Jian Chen knew better than to believe his words and sighed in disappointment. I'm afraid to disappoint seniors, but the seal of Treasure Mountain has already been handed to someone else and is no longer within my possession. Jian Chen's words caused the two elders to reveal horrified expressions as the third elder tried to keep the calm look on his face. What? The seal of Treasure Mountain is no longer on you? Is that true? When I entered the Holy Land, I gave the seal of Treasure Mountain to Qin Ji, so it is no longer on me. Jian Chen spoke. You hoodlum. To give away such a precious treasure as if passing a gift, you ruffian. Are you not afraid of death? The treasure of the Shi family, just how could you give it away? The fourth elder exploded with a furious rage as he pointed at Jian Chen with a quivering finger. If it were not for Mercenary City, he would have long since tried to strangle Jian Chen. The third elder's expression grew dim as his eyes gained an unholy light to them. Then, while he was thinking, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and began to write on the air with his blood, forming a complicated-looking array after some time. With an explosive shout, the third elder pressed against the core of the formation, Seal of Treasure Mountain, return. As soon as he spoke, Jian Chen's expression grew startled as he felt the Seal of Treasure Mountain within his space ring suddenly begin to tremble and shake as if trying to separate itself from the space ring. Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't thought that there would be such a summoning skill. Fortunately, the attractive force was not all that strong, otherwise Jian Chen was afraid that the space ring would be unable to hold it in. Jian Chen clenched the space ring tightly so that the Seal of Treasure Mountain wouldn't escape. The bloody formation slowly began to grow faint before disappearing from view completely. However, the third elder who had drawn the formation grew pale in the face. It would appear that this secret skill had used up a lot of his energy. Jian Chen, you cannot deceive us, it is still within your possession. You should hand it over to us so we may return home without any further conflict. The third elder's expression was weaker than before, but the honest face was still there. As it was now, Jian Chen didn't bother to hide any more secrets and spoke, "Seniors, you should go home. Are you certain that you will not return the seal of Treasure Mountain? It will only bring you more trouble." The third elder asked Jian Chen once more for confirmation. "That is not your business to worry about." Jian Chen didn't plan to return the seal of Treasure Mountain. In fact, he would rather give it to someone else rather than return it to the Shi family. He knew that even if he were to give it back, the family would still not forgive him. He was already well experienced in matters like this. The third elder sighed before taking out an embroidered pouch. "Jian Chen, do you know what this is?" When Jian Chen didn't answer, the third elder continued to speak. "This is a poison I spent a dear sum of money to purchase from a friend. Inside is what is known as the 100 Poisons powder. Its poison is extremely toxic and is the amalgamation of hundreds of poisons. It is without flavor or color and can be spread through the air. As long as this poison enters the body, then even a Heaven Saint Master will not escape unharmed. Aside from a specially made antidote, this poison is incurable." Hearing this, even the fourth elder had become surprised. "Third elder, you truly are a mastermind. How admirable, no wonder you had me eat a pill early, that was the antidote." The third elder laughed and nodded his head before looking at Jian Chen smugly, confident that he had power over Jian Chen's life now. Jian Chen also smiled as he looked at the elder. "Third elder, if you could tell me, am I poisoned?" "Correct." The third elder nodded his head. "Jian Chen, ever since we entered the room, I used this powder to send poison through the air, spreading it throughout the room. You've already breathed in the poison, but you weren't able to detect it." Unable to stop himself from laughing, Jian Chen threw his head up carelessly for a moment before looking back to the indescribable faces of the third and fourth elders. "Third elder, I've neglected to tell you, but my body is immune to many things. Your poison holds no power over me." Jian Chen laughed as if he had shared a funny joke. The third elder's face looked as if he had suffered a terrible blow as his expression immediately scrunched up to look rather vicious and ugly-like. Originally, he had thought he had finally cornered Jian Chen, but Jian Chen had somehow managed to cross the wall he had put up without any effort at all. "Fourth elder, we're going." With a swish of his robes, the third elder returned the powder to his sleeves and turned around. The fourth elder glared coldly at Jian Chen. "Youngster, you had best stay within Mercenary City for the rest of your life." With that, the fourth elder left the building. That night, while Jian Chen had noticed that there were no more uninvited guests, countless of hidden eyes had started to look at Jian Chen around the clock. Jian Chen knew that both the Jie clan and Shi family were now monitoring him in an effort to prevent him from escaping from under their eyes and take their ruler armament away with him. Chapter 350, Departing with Ease. As for the Jie clan monitoring him, Jian Chen didn't care at all. This sort of development was something he had predicted a long time ago. On the second day, Jian Chen left his room to stroll around the streets of Mercenary City. He walked east, he wandered west, there was no definite location in sight. But right behind him, several groups of men followed him from a decent ways away. Since they no longer feared being detected by Jian Chen, they didn't care for being stealthy. Jian Chen led the group on a day-long walk before finally returning back to his inn for the night. On the day after, Jian Chen left the inn once more. When he left, the attendants behind him followed Jian Chen 30 meters away. Not even caring to look at the group of people behind him, Jian Chen wandered around Mercenary City once more. This time, staring toward the east while walking toward the west as if to enjoy the scenery around him. Soon, Jian Chen came across a gambling house. With a smile that seemed ready to crack a joke, Jian Chen walked into the place with the people behind him following him in. Within the gambling house countless men were enthusiastically making noise. Those who had won money were crying out in joy while those who had lost were all sighing with regret. Jian Chen swiftly traveled through a group of people to an even larger crowd before blending in with the other gamblers. His figure instantly disappeared from the gambling house, leaving his stalkers to anxiously look around themselves. Emerging from the gambling house, Jian Chen immediately switched streets and looked for a different inn to hide himself in. But by that night, Jian Chen was found out once more as his stalkers surrounded the inn. What an annoying group of flies! Jian Chen sighed to himself without any choice. With this group of people constantly chasing him, Jian Chen couldn't leave Mercenary City. In the case the Jie clan and Shi family leaders found out that he had left and his whereabouts, he would most likely be killed. The next day, Jian Chen left his room and headed for the plaza where the palace was in Mercenary City. This area was where the inner city was connected to the outer road and the outside world. Since Jian Chen was the king of mercenaries, his special identity allowed him to enter this place without any obstructions. However, a middle-aged man came to meet him this time instead. "Senior, this one would like to see the elders, would that be possible?" Jian Chen asked him politely. The man shook his head, out of the question, seeing the elders is not something that can be so easily done. "Your ceremony has long since passed. Unless the elders wish to see you first, you cannot see them." Jian Chen had a dejected look on his face, but he asked, "Then would it be possible for me to leave Mercenary City via the Space Gate?" "Our Mercenary City's Space Gate is for entering the city which can only be used by the inner members. As for exiting the city via the Space Gate, you must have the permission of the elders, otherwise, even the inner members are forbidden from using it," the man explained. Depressed, Jian Chen left the area. If he had known about this earlier, he would have asked the 8th elder for permission to leave the city during his time in the Holy Land. Wandering around the streets of Mercenary City once more, Jian Chen began to think of an escape plan. After he had used the gambling house to escape his stalkers, they were now cautious of a second escape plan. Even the distance had decreased from 20 meters to a measly 5 meters. Even more audaciously, the group were now following Jian Chen with an unbridled amount of arrogance, causing Jian Chen no small amount of annoyance. If it were not for the fact that Mercenary City forbade violence, then Jian Chen would have beaten them all up long ago for their arrogance. Jian Chen knew that shaking them off at such a close distance would be too difficult. Even if he were to use the illusionary flash, if there were any wind attribute cultivators who were Earth Saint Masters, then at least 2 of them would be able to catch up with him. That night, Jian Chen entered a random inn and ordered a meal and a room for the night to rest. The ones that were still following him had stumbled in as well and booked the adjacent rooms. The other group of men surrounded the inn in tight proximity to avoid Jian Chen from escaping from them. The following morning, Jian Chen left his room once more after eating an early breakfast. Then, he walked back into his room and began to cultivate. For the next couple of days, Jian Chen hadn't left his room at all other than to eat a meal. The rest of his time was spent studying the illusionary flash. While the men outside his room still kept up a vigilant watch, they all realized that Jian Chen was most likely planning to stay where he was for a long time, so they were now relatively relaxed. They needn't be on guard as they were a few days ago, but they still maintained a strong watch over Jian Chen. No matter if it was day or night, there would still be someone watching, so it was as if there was a giant net being placed over the inn. In a flash, 10 days had passed by with Jian Chen spending most of his time researching the illusionary flash. If he could understand the fragments of the profound mysteries of the world within his mind, then his comprehension of the illusionary flash would multiply several times over. He had already mastered the basics, allowing his speed to be double that of when he was in the gathering of the mercenaries. By now, Jian Chen was almost comparable in speed to a 6th cycle wind-attributed Earth Saint Master. At the very least, he could survive against a Heaven Saint Master. Of course, this was only just a conservative guess. He had only mastered the basics, so he could only guess how fast he was. Just how fast he was exactly, he didn't know since he hadn't been able to test it out yet. Early one morning, Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes from his meditative posture and looked at the blooming skies. Muttering to himself, he spoke, "It's about time to leave." With that, Jian Chen got off his bed and allowed a faint glow of azure and violet to be emitted from his finger. Floating overhead, it reached the wooden ceiling and immediately bore a hole into it, causing the wooden ceiling to shred apart like tofu. With a gentle push, Jian Chen removed the half-a-meter-long circumference hole from the ceiling, revealing a single hole. Seeing the large hole, Jian Chen cracked a smile before putting the wooden hole back in place for the meanwhile, and then he left the room. As per usual, Jian Chen walked down for an early breakfast. After finishing, he walked back to his room and closed the doors and windows. Immediately, he began to take out a variety of herbs from within his space ring to begin to paint his face. Half an hour later, Jian Chen lifted his head to reveal a completely different face than before. By now, his face was that of an ordinary-looking middle-aged man with several cut marks and even a beard, giving him a fierce look. Looking at his own reflection, Jian Chen nodded his head. Suddenly, a cracking sound could be heard as Jian Chen's stature suddenly grew thicker and even his height was increased. In no time at all, Jian Chen's physique had grown burly, the complete opposite of what he was before. Adorning a black robe from within his space belt, Jian Chen once more cut off the long hair that had trailed down his shoulders, leaving behind a greatly diminished amount. Once this had been done, Jian Chen was a completely different person in appearance with absolutely nothing that could link the two together. Even Ming Dong and Qin Shao, who were both friends with Jian Chen, would not have been able to tell that this burly-looking man was him. Inspecting his face once more, Jian Chen made sure nothing had been overlooked before taking out the wooden hole cover from the ceiling. With a tiny leap, he immediately landed in the room above before replacing the hole. Closing the door to the room, Jian Chen walked outside. And just like that, Jian Chen had been able to avoid the eyes and ears of everyone else. As he strutted his way out, not a single person doubted him, let alone looked at him. As a result of the past few days, Jian Chen had deliberately allowed everyone to become accustomed to his habits. After his morning meal, he would shut himself up in his room in order to cultivate. Not a single one of them had figured that Jian Chen would change his appearances and try to leave. Walking onto the streets, Jian Chen walked himself into a bustling inn that had plenty of people already inside. After ordering a room, Jian Chen disguised himself once more as a thin-looking middle-aged man before leaving the building. With all of this done, Jian Chen walked to a store where he bought a map and several other items necessary for living in the rural areas. Then, he walked to an isolated alleyway and changed his appearances once more. This time, Jian Chen disguised himself as a prominent son of a powerful clan. With a wig on his head and a Class 3 magical beast, Jian Chen rode the magical beast toward the merchant's gate outside of the city, where he took a leading position in front of a merchant group that was just getting ready to leave. This way, he was able to make the facade that he was the leader of the caravan group. Chapter 351, Hero Saving the Girl. 1. Half a day later, Jian Chen had managed to evade detection by following the caravan out of Mercenary City. Walking without leaving behind any tracks, not a single person was able to detect him. After some distance away, Jian Chen split off on his own path, away from the caravan, and the moment he saw no one around, he dismounted from his magical beast and began to use his illusionary flash. Whoosh! With the illusionary flash being utilized, Jian Chen shot forward like an arrow, leaving behind only the faintest of his mirror image as he flew at tremendous speeds. Running at full speed, Jian Chen's ears could only feel the wind blow past them in a deafening manner, causing him to be unable to hear anything. Even the scenery on both sides of him was rapidly blurring away, allowing him to only see a mixture of color, nothing too specific. This was the very first time that Jian Chen could use the illusionary flash to travel at high speeds across such a vast space of land, so the speed he was traveling at had astounded Jian Chen himself. With this speed, Jian Chen was certain that he could beat a sixth cycle wind-attributed Earth Saint Master in speed, and only a flying Heaven Saint Master would be able to keep up. With this inconceivable speed brought to him by the illusionary flash, Jian Chen could only feel an intense amount of satisfaction. He wouldn't fear even a Heaven Saint Master chasing him now, plus, his mastery over the illusionary flash was only limited to the very basics still. Jian Chen couldn't help but wonder, if he were to master it to an extremely high level, just how fast could he travel? The illusionary flash was endlessly profound. Jian Chen had spent a long time just reaching a mastery over the basics. The difficulty as he grew to a higher level of understanding would only grow more. Ever since the beginning, when he had first started to learn the illusionary flash, Jian Chen felt that there was a deep connection with space regarding the illusionary flash. This had meant that Jian Chen would need to understand the profound mysteries of the world, which by extension had also meant that until he was a saint ruler, he would not be able to master the illusionary flash to a high extent. It's no wonder that this was an ancient skill that the past races had deemed to be a supreme technique that surpassed most in its complexity. Jian Chen thought to himself. Flying southward with the use of the illusionary flash, Jian Chen was trying his best to avoid the Jie clan and Shi family's Heaven Saint Masters should they come. Across the vast plains, Jian Chen's figure had turned into a missile that flew across the world. With the battle skill that allowed him to travel far beyond what he used to be capable of doing, the intense gales of wind had kicked up a giant dust trail. It was quite a stunning sight, but fortunately for Jian Chen, there was not a single person around, so no one would be able to see it. 2 hours later, Jian Chen had traveled countless of kilometers away from Mercenary City. In the past, if Jian Chen were to try to guess how much he could travel within this same time span, he would never guess the amount he was traversing now. However, in these 2 hours, Jian Chen's 4th cycle Earth Saint Master level of Saint Force had already been halfway used up. The illusionary flash was a supplementary battle skill of the Heaven Saint tier level and not a Saint tier battle skill. Thus, the amount of Saint Force used for this battle skill was terrifying, and Jian Chen himself would be only capable of keeping it up for 4 hours. Ho! Suddenly, 5 kilometers away, a 3-meter-tall black devil panther had discovered Jian Chen and instantly flew toward him like a speeding bullet. Any panther-modeled magical beast was especially adept in speed. Furthermore, this was a Class 5 magical beast, so its speed was even higher. Staring at the devil panther with contempt, Jian Chen ignored it and continued to blow past it with his speed maxed out. The panther's maw bit at empty space before howling angrily and chased after Jian Chen. Despite it being extremely fast, Jian Chen was even faster, so the distance between the two only increased more and more. Another hour later, Jian Chen had traveled over at least 1,000 kilometers away from Mercenary City. With no other choice but to stop, he looked for a safe-looking spot to rest for a moment. Taking out a Class 5 monster core, he began to absorb the energy within to recover. After those 3 hours of running, Jian Chen had already used up 3/4 of his total Saint Force. If he didn't recover and he were to come across any unexpected trouble, he would be in no shape to deal with it. After 4 hours, Jian Chen's Saint Force had been fully recovered, allowing him to travel with the illusionary flash once more. 2 days later in Mercenary City, the men on the watch for Jian Chen hadn't seen any signs of Jian Chen. However, each one had thought that Jian Chen was merely stuck within a deep meditative study. After all, men of their caliber would often go for days without eating or drinking in order to focus on their cultivation. So this did not worry the stalkers too much. There were also countless men surrounding the inn day and night as well. Even a housefly wouldn't be able to escape if they wanted, let alone a person. At this moment, several mercenaries entered the inn. After a meal, one of them climbed up to his reserved room. Bang! Very quickly, a loud sound could be heard throughout the tavern as a furious person roared from the second story, "Motherfucking bastard, shopkeeper, just what kind of broken in are you running? Just how could there be a hole on the ground? Fuck, I goddamn fell from the third floor to the second floor." Hearing the angry roar, all of the people in charge of watching out for Jian Chen were all stunned and instantly responded. Immediately running for the second floor where Jian Chen's room was, they flung open the door only to discover that a single man was swearing furiously on the floor. On the ceiling was a single half-meter wide hole. Not good, he escaped. Everyone instantly grew pale as they immediately reported to the others before setting out to look for him. Not too long after, news of Jian Chen's sudden disappearance had been reported to the Jie clan and Shi family elders. Immediately, the two elders exploded with rage as they rained curses on their men. "Useless, you useless pieces of trash! Are each and every single one of you blind? You are all truly trash. With so many people watching just one man, he still managed to slip away from under your nose. Hurry up and look for him. If you can't find him, then don't even bother coming back." The fourth elder of the Shi family howled. The third elder was calmer than the fourth and looked down at the kneeling men in front of him. "You didn't see Jian Chen leave or even when?" One man instantly reported all that he knew to the third elder. Hearing this, the elder hummed in contemplation. It seems that this Jian Chen had altered his appearances and slipped away in secret. I didn't think that he would have such a skill set like this, how extraordinary. Third elder, then what should we do now? The fourth elder spoke. The third elder had been the smarter one of the two and so he wanted to see just what new plan could be made. What else? Have everyone start searching for Jian Chen and send news back to the clan so they can send over some help. Then, have someone go and put a bounty on Jian Chen. The third elder spoke. Jian Chen is the king of mercenaries. If we were to go to the mercenary union and place a bounty on him, then wouldn't the entire mercenary city know that we are his enemies? This would reflect poorly on us. The fourth elder was afraid of the repercussions. Don't worry, fourth elder. Even if they know, the city wouldn't bother to interfere. It would be only if they had a connection with each other that they would interfere, but other than that, they won't. The third elder spoke with confidence. Putting his faith in the third elder, the fourth elder commanded to the others, "You've all heard the third elder's words, go and do it." At the same time, the two Jie clan elders were glaring dangerously at the group of men in front of them. The ones responsible for watching over Jian Chen, a pile of trash. Hurry up and look for him. Hire some men to comb the city, and if you don't find him, then don't ever return. Yes, yes, we will go immediately. The few men all spoke as if hoping to gain amnesty before retreating out of the room. After 2 whole days of constant journeying, Jian Chen had figured that he had already traveled over 10,000 kilometers away from Mercenary City and was now temporarily safe. Within a small brook nearby, Jian Chen began to bathe himself. Then, taking a new set of clothes from his space belt, he changed his appearances once more to resemble an ordinary-looking youth before setting out once more. Because of the tournament, many people knew of Jian Chen, thus, he had no other choice but to change his appearances. Afterward, Jian Chen slowed down his pace. From what he knew of his position on the map, there was another second-class city 100 kilometers away. The sounds of battle could be heard not too far away. Upon closer observation, Jian Chen noticed that it seemed to be a battle royale with around 100 ordinary-looking people riding on horses. Judging from their appearances, they looked to be bandits. The opposing side only had 30 men who were all desperately trying to defend a luxurious-looking caravan. At this sight, Jian Chen couldn't help but think about the time when the boundless bandits had attacked him when he was escaping from the Jessen kingdom. At that moment, Jian Chen had only been a lowly saint and had been driven to the brink of exhaustion by a saint master. At that time, a great saint master had been an unbearably strong expert. But now, several years had passed. Even the strongest of great Saint Masters was only a horsefly to him, but this still didn't prevent Jian Chen from sighing. Chapter 352, Hero Saving the Girl. 2. You black-winged bandits are too annoying. We gave you money already, why don't you leave now? A middle-aged man slashed at 3 of the black-winged bandits with a furious howl. From the 100 bandits, one man who seemed to be the leader began to laugh. I've heard your Lanming clan has a beautiful-looking miss with a divine grace. Why don't you deliver her to Dang Yizhai of the Dang family to be his bride? To your Lanming clan, this won't be such a bad thing. Don't you even dream about it. The miss is the beloved pearl of our clan and the one our patriarch dotes upon most. If the miss were to have an accident here and now, then our Lanming clan would do everything possible to track down you black-winged bandits. The middle-aged man roared. This person had to be the leader of their group. Ha ha ha, your Lanming clan is a clan we are well aware of. With just your Lanming clan alone, us black-winged bandits aren't even afraid. The leader of the bandits boomed with laughter. My brothers, carry on. When the carriage is delivered to the Dang family, everyone will definitely benefit from this. Immediately, the morale of the bandits skyrocketed as they all began to fight even more passionately, bringing the 30 bodyguards under an overwhelming amount of pressure. Some of the bodyguards were slashed down by the weapons of the bandits and fell to the floor as blood spilled on the ground. Within a flash, only 20 men remained to defend desperately. As for the black-winged bandits, it was as if they were on stimulants as their fighting strength and enthusiasm increased. Each sword strike grew heavier and filled the air with saint force. In a short moment, another 10 bodyguards had fallen while barely a dozen of the bandits had died. Their casualties were very minimal, keeping an overwhelming advantage over the other party. You will regret this. Be prepared to pay the price, our patriarch will definitely never forgive you. The middle-aged man roared fiercely. He was a peak great Saint Master, but at the moment, he was fighting 2 middle great Saint Masters who pushed him to his limits. With such a heavy battle, his wounds were no longer few and minor. Blood trailed down his body at a fast rate, and if this continued, he wouldn't be able to go on for much longer. Ha ha ha, your words are too serious. When your precious daughter of the Lanming clan becomes the bride to Yizhai, the 2 sides will be family. Just how could you point your weapons at family? Don't you feel that this is a wrong thing to do? The bandit laughed. The middle-aged man's face began to ashen as his eyes narrowed in hatred. Unfortunately, he was helpless at the moment. The last 10 remaining men were all surrounded by the black-winged bandits and their power was not enough for them to find a way out of this situation. Seeing each and every single one of the bodyguards beside him fall, the man's face finally began to show the tiniest amount of despair. This old man will throw away his life if it means that you won't be able to claim your prize so easily. The man howled as the saint force within him burst outward. Abandoning all defense, he began to fight against 3 people at once. Quickly, he's about to use his earth-tier battle skill. The bandit leader barked out. Even as the bandit leader spoke, the middle-aged man had already turned to slash his giant sword at the man. The 2 other great Saint Masters that were fighting with the man earlier were clearly experienced with fighting the leader. They matched each other's movements and tried to break the man away from his concentration. Bang! Following the loud bang, a crater formed right underneath everyone's feet, causing all 4 of the fighters to fall down. Each one of them grew pale in face and began to spit out a mouthful of blood. The middle-aged man tried to crawl up from the ground, but his wounds were already quite serious. A nearby bloody bodyguard gave support to him with a worried look. Captain, are you all right? The other 3 bandits hadn't received any major damage, so they had quickly gotten back up. One of them roared out, hurry up and kill them, but don't damage the carriage. Yes. Every bandit cried out in agreement as they flew at the remaining bodyguards with their saint weapons ready to strike. PCH. 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 Just as several of the bandits brought their hands down to strike, something strange happened. Every single bandits had their heads sent flying into the air before their headless bodies began to splurt blood a meter high into the air. This sudden development caused everyone to become startled with some puzzlement. Not a single one of them had known just what happened, and so they couldn't react to it. Heads of the bandits continued to fly into the air as each bandit lost their head. As pumpkin-sized heads filled the air, many of the bandits were left dead on the ground within the time span of 2 short breaths. This bizarre event caused the remaining 10 bodyguards to look on with eyes wide open in utter disbelief at what was happening right in front of them. What's happening? Who's killing them? The bandit leader cried out in terror as he watched the headless bodies of his comrades rain blood onto the ground. His voice was quavering as he spoke, and of the 100 men they had started with, only 3 were left. Suddenly, even his body froze up too as he spotted the terrifying image of a black-robed person flying at him from the side. The figure was a rather skinny-looking youth who was wearing a black robe. His hair was extremely short and his appearance was quite average. If he were to be placed within a large group of people, he wouldn't be out of place. Most importantly was the fact that he didn't look a year older than 30. The leader of the bandits stared in horror at the oncoming youth before stuttering, "Is it you that's killing, my men?" Staring at the remaining 3 bandits and then at the 10 bodyguards and the middle-aged man who was severely injured, the youth took out a pill filled with radiant saint force from his space ring and threw it at the middle-aged man to eat. Swallowing the pill that had been thrown into his mouth, the man's face began to improve as he felt the effects of the pill. This is a radiant spirit pill. In his shock, the middle-aged man immediately cupped his hands in gratitude toward Jian Chen. "This one thanks my lord, our Lanming clan will definitely thank you." "That won't be needed. I only came here in passing, nothing more." The black-robed youth that was Jian Chen stated. The 3 remaining bandits all looked at Jian Chen with a stupefied look. So many people had been killed by this black-robed youth within just a few moments. This type of strength had left them utterly confused and afraid. Even the Dang family wouldn't have such a strength like this. Run away. He's an Earth Saint Ma Master. One of the bandits stuttered with fear as his face lost all color. Even his speech had been utterly incomprehensible as he tried to run away. The other 2 men had been spooked at the mention of an Earth Saint Master and tried to run on foot as well. "If you don't wish to die, then stand still." A loud command could be heard, causing all 3 bandits to nearly fall down to the ground due to the overwhelming power, but they managed to stand still in fear of making another step. "Oh great swordsman, please forgive us. We have a family to take care of and feed. They are depending on us to take care of them, but if we are to die, then they will have no way of living." One of the bandits cried with mucus dripping from his nose. Against an Earth Saint Master expert, not a single one of the 3 believed they could escape from him. "You 3 come here." Jian Chen's eyes grew cold as he commanded the bandits. Each of the 3 bandits looked at each other with a desperate look before apprehensively approaching Jian Chen and kowtowing to him. Looking at the 3 men, Jian Chen turned to the other middle-aged man behind him. "These 3 men you can take care of. I thank the young lord." The middle-aged man spoke out in gratitude before commanding the other 3, "Find some rope to tie these 3 up, we shall deliver them to our patriarch." Upon this, the 3 bandits grew even more pale, but with an Earth Saint Master right there looking at them, they didn't dare make any sudden movements. Soon the 3 bandits were tied up like hay bales. "Guard Yun, what is going on now?" Suddenly, the soft sound of a lady could be heard from within the carriage. The middle-aged man immediately spoke up to respond, "My lady, there is nothing to report now, a strong young lord was able to rescue us. My lady, if you could please come out to greet our benefactor." For a moment, the carriage went silent before the doors finally opened and a red-robed girl stepped outside. This was a beautiful young girl with a near-devastating beauty. Her skin was like pure white jade and her eyes seemed as if they were capable of enrapturing any soul that gazed into them. From her appearances, she looked to be around 22 years old and had a scholarly look to her. She hadn't differed from Huang Wuan's appearance much, but the major difference between the two was that this girl was kind in nature in contrast to Huang Wuan's crafty and headstrong personality. Because of the frightful event that was happening to her earlier, her face was still quite pale, since not enough blood was reaching her face. Her eyes still had a lingering trace of fear, but as she looked around at the bloody landscape, her entire body began to tremble and grew even more pale than before, causing everyone to be worried. This was the very first time she had ever seen such a bloody massacre. Trying to force herself to become calm, her eyes quickly landed upon the black-robed Jian Chen. Immediately curtsying, she spoke kindly, "We thank our hero for his assistance. We are eternally grateful to the hero." Jian Chen waved his hand nonchalantly, "It was no bother since I was passing along the same route. I've come to dislike bandits as well. Since your group is safe now, I shall be leaving, goodbye." With that, Jian Chen turned to leave. Although he saw that the young lady was quite beautiful, Jian Chen was not a lecherous man. For such a pretty sight like her, Jian Chen saw nothing but trouble. Not a single person had thought that Jian Chen would have been so blunt with his words and leave when he said he would. The middle-aged man hurriedly came up to block his path and pleaded with him. "Fellow hero, please take a look at the wounds of us guards. Moving would be no problem, but fighting is outside of our grasp. Please take mercy and escort us to Wuxia city, otherwise, if we were to come across someone with wicked intentions on the road, we won't be able to defend ourselves." Jian Chen had some hesitation at accepting such a request, but in the end he agreed since Wuxia city was also the same place he was traveling to. Chapter 353, The Lanming clan of Wuxia city. When Jian Chen had agreed to protect them until the city, the bodyguards had been ecstatic. To have an Earth Saint Master join their ranks, their journey would be undoubtedly safe without worry or fear of anyone with malicious intent like the Black Wind bandits. Jian Chen had been courteously invited to sit in the carriage, and death be unto those who would ask Jian Chen to travel on foot. All of the horses that they had either been killed or had run away. Aside from the 3 Class 2 magical beasts pulling the carriage, there were no other horse to sit on. Unable to refuse the hospitality and well-meaning of the middle-aged man, Jian Chen chose to sit on the part of the carriage where the driver would usually sit to direct the animals. "Little brother, the wind outside is quite big, you should head in." The man smiled at Jian Chen with a polite air. An Earth Saint Master would be considered a top-tier expert within Wuxia city, and the Lanming clan could be considered one of the 2 top clans since even their patriarch was an Earth Saint Master. If they were to lose their patriarch, then their position within Wuxia city would irrevocably change. At the very best, the clan would be considered a high-quality clan. There were already a few dozen of these types of clan in Wuxia city, so it could be seen that an Earth Saint Master was a high and mighty position. "It's fine, I enjoy sitting out here." Jian Chen spoke. The middle-aged man didn't bother to say any more. If he were to try to convince him to sit elsewhere, then it would do more harm than good. At this moment, a delicate fragrance could be smelled from behind as the doors to the carriage opened up, revealing the red-robed girl who was walking out. Sitting next to Jian Chen on the driver's seat, her beautiful eyes stared at Jian Chen as she spoke gently, "Many thanks to our benefactor for saving our lives. This girl is named Lanying, if I may ask for my lord's name?" Jian Chen swept a glance at the beauty next to him before turning back to look at the front. "You flatter me too much. My name is Yang Yutian." "So it is Lord Yang. Where might Lord Yang be traveling to, and where might Lord Yang be from?" Lanying's eyes stared at Jian Chen with her bright eyes, but when she saw the slightest furrowing of Jian Chen's eyebrows, she spoke up in a hurry. "This girl was just curious. If Lord Yang does not wish to answer, then please forgive this girl for being rude. Laughing, Jianchen spoke, the young lady is too serious. I've come from a faraway nation to travel the entire continent and increase my knowledge and experience. The sky is my ceiling and the earth is my bed as I travel. Then it is no wonder Lord Yang is so strong with a long process of cultivation like that. The carriage continued to move slowly as the remaining 10 bodyguards traveled close by the sides of it. On the road they came across several ordinary mercenary groups who were riding horses. The middle-aged man had then spent a wealthy sum of money to purchase a few horses so that the 10 bodyguards could double up on a horse. 4 hours later, the 10 blood-soaked bodyguards and the carriage finally entered the city. On the road, everyone had begun to notice their identities and began to talk among themselves. Isn't that the Lanming clan? For them to have so many injuries, did a powerful faction decide to be their enemy? The Lanming clan is one of the top 2 clans of Thascia City. I've heard their patriarch is an Earth Saint Master as well. Who could possibly dare try to provoke the Lanming clan and the Huanyao clan? The black-robed Jianchen continued to sit on the driver's seat of the carriage as the bodyguards nearby guided him while Lanying remained inside the carriage. Suddenly, the sounds of frantic pattering could be heard up ahead as a large group of magical beast riders charged toward the carriage. Charging ahead of them was an elderly man who was riding the Class 4 magical beast, Storm Wolf. The moment the middle-aged man saw the elder, an immediate smile greeted his face as he cried out, "It's the Patriarch. The Patriarch is here." The Patriarch of the Lanming clan quickly reached the entire group, causing the entire group of bodyguards to salute, "We greet the Patriarch." Without even glancing at them, he flew off of his mount with an anxious expression and cried out loud with an anxious worry, "Inger, Inger. Are you all right, Inger?" The doors to the carriage opened as the red-robed Lanying walked out. When she saw the elder, she immediately began to cry out with tears, "Grandfather." Seeing that Lanying was completely unharmed, the elder's face immediately slackened as he jumped to hug Lanying. "It's okay then. Everything is fine now, Inger. This was your grandfather's fault. I didn't hire a good enough bodyguard and so my daughter has suffered." This elder was the patriarch of the Lanming clan and doted upon his granddaughter. She was the pearl of the clan and someone he had always protected. When he heard that several bloody bodyguards of the Lanming clan had appeared by the city gates, he had instantly guessed that the bodyguards that were protecting Lanying had been ambushed. In fear for the life of his granddaughter, he had immediately ran for the gates as if he were on fire. As he consoled his granddaughter, he turned his icy eyes toward the middle-aged man who was in charge of protecting her. "Guard Yun, just what in the world happened on the road? Who would dare cross paths with our Lanming clan?" "Patriarch, we had encountered the Black Wind bandits who had far outmatched our strengths. If it were not for Lord Yang who was passing by in our time of need, then I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to come back to report to you." Guard Yun spoke with regret. Hearing that, the patriarch of the Lanming clan turned to look at the cross-legged Jianchen on the carriage as if to quickly measure him up. Then, he cupped his hands together. "I thank little brother for his assistance. My Lanming clan will be sure to reward you." Jianchen laughed, but returned the polite gesture, "Patriarch is too kind, but your thanks will be unneeded. This one was only there by coincidence. Little brother here has saved the life of my Lanying. This is something my Lanming clan will never forget. If you could come by our Lanming clan and be our guest, it would be my greatest honor to receive you." The patriarch spoke earnestly. For a moment, Jianchen hesitated, but in the end he replied with a smile, "Then I'll be troubling you for a place to stay." "Trouble? It's no trouble at all." The patriarch waved his hand with a merry laugh. At that moment, Guard Yun pointed at the 3 firmly wrapped-up bandits and spoke to the patriarch. "Patriarch, these 3 were the ringleaders of the Black Wind bandits. Lord Yang was the one who captured them and they now await your verdict." The 3 bandits had their mouths wrapped up so all they could say were muffled cries of forgiveness as they pleaded at the patriarch's feet. The patriarch's eyes grew cold as he ordered, "Take them back first." Traveling to the northeastern part of Thascia city, the group soon reached a large and expansive house that was extraordinarily pretty. Even the decorations added to its beauty as the patriarch led Jian Chen to the receiving halls where they began to talk while the patriarch slyly tried to figure just what identity he had. Jian Chen calmly answered each and every question the patriarch had, but when it came to answers regarding himself, he had naturally answered with what he had told Lanying. Jian Chen had even masked his aura so that the patriarch would be unable to ascertain Jian Chen's true strength. However, the guard Yun had guaranteed that Jian Chen was an Earth Saint Master, so the patriarch had been extremely courteous without bearing any tint of arrogance. Then, Jian Chen changed the topic by asking, "Patriarch, might you have heard of something called the Space Gate?" "Space Gate? What is that?" The patriarch was confused, clearly not understanding what that was. A look of dejection could be seen on Jian Chen's face. His purpose on coming to the Lanming clan was to find news if there was a nearby space gate. Since this place was extremely far away from the Jessen kingdom, he had wanted to travel via space gate to shorten the trip. Otherwise, even if he were to use the illusionary flash, the journey would have been extremely long and the Saint Force consumption would be unbearably high. Back when he was leaving the Blue Wind Kingdom, the relations between the Jessen kingdom and its neighbors had already been extremely tense. 2 years had passed and he didn't know what the current state was or if war had already broke out. Unfortunately, the place he was in right now was too far away to hear news of the Jessen kingdom. After all, the Jessen kingdom was rather small, and the amount of kingdoms within the Tian Yuan continent numbered over the hundreds. Even if one were to be extinguished, the rest of the continent would still carry on. That night, Jian Chen and the rest of the high-ranking members of the Lanming clan dined on fine delicacies. Right now the Lanming clan was enthusiastically talking to their new guest while at the same time in a closed-off area, another group of high-ranking members were talking secretly. "Father, I don't find this method appropriate. We don't know anything about the identity of this Yang Yutian and have only come to know him for a small amount of time, so we have no idea of even his personality. Just how can we so easily betroth Inger to him? We cannot be careless about this." A middle-aged man said. This was Lanying's father. "Patriarch, that man is an Earth Saint Master. While his appearances are rather average, if he was able to reach the Earth Saint Master realm by the age of 30, that means his potential is unlimited. It is possible that he could make the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master soon. In the case that we have the support of a Heaven Saint Master, then our clan would undoubtedly become stronger." Chapter 354, Class 6 Magical Beast, Langener, your way of thinking is far too simple. We don't understand this Yang Yutian at all. If he has a strong background, then this would certainly bode well for our Lanming clan. But you didn't think this through. In the case that this Yang Yutian has offended a terrible enemy, then our Lanmin will be dragged into this situation. Although our Lanming clan is extremely high in position in regards to Thascia city, that is still a small area in comparison to the Tian Yuan continent where we are nothing more than an insect to be stamped on. We simply cannot afford to be caught up in any trouble, so I do not approve of betting on Laning's happiness for this. Your words have merit. The identity of this Yang Yutian is still unclear. Right now, we are unable to predict whether or not this betrothal will bring fortune or destruction. This is far too risky. Don't think of this situation so pessimistically. As the proverbs say, to find treasure, you must take hold of it from the jaws of trouble. Just how do you expect to catch the cub of a tiger without ever entering the cave? If we do not take this risk, our Lanming clan will forever be holed up within this small Thascia city. This is an opportunity for our clan. Young individuals with a strength like this are rare to see on the continent, but each one of them are unparalleled geniuses with a future like no other. This is the Lanming clan's chance to rise. Several men stood around in a circle as they each debated about the matter of betrothing Lanying to Jian Chen. Some were in favor of this idea, some were not. But each one of them had a logical explanation for their reasons, so even after an entire day, they had not reached a conclusion. That's enough. Everyone please settle down, we are getting nowhere with this. Why don't we listen to the patriarch's words? A man spoke. Immediately, everyone's eyes turned to look at the patriarch of the Lanming clan. The patriarch looked at everyone with an expressionless face for a moment before speaking. Each and every single one of you should think about it for a moment. Do you really think an Earth Saint Master would be that easy to rope in? This youth is a strong individual with a proud air. Although he is undoubtedly not a low-ranking figure, he is also not a person that our small Lanming clan would be able to grab hold of. We don't even know how long he will stay in our Thascia city, but that's enough. We shall talk no more about this. I shall take the matter in my own hands. If you still have enough time to think, then think about what action we shall take toward the Black Wind bandits. To dare move against our precious pearl. If we don't take action against these bandits, I would be ashamed to continue living in Thascia city. Yes, Patriarch. Everyone spoke up at once. The Patriarch's might within the clan was far too high, and when he spoke, not a single one would dare to not listen. The next morning, Jian Chun told some servants of the Lanming clan before heading out of the clan compound and walking out onto the streets to roam around the city. Thascia city was a second-class city, so the amount of people walking in and out was quite high. The city streets were filled with richly dressed people as well as many different burly-looking mercenaries. The scars on the streets were remnants from when the carriages rolled over it, showing what state the city was in. Out of the way, everyone get out of the way. Suddenly, a group of 20 mercenaries on mounts flew out from behind and continued to run like the wind, much to the amazement of everyone watching. That has to be the Black Wolf mercenaries. Seeing how much of a hurry they're in, something must have happened to them. A bystander spoke up to the person next to him. Don't you know? Yesterday night, a piece of information could be heard. According to these rumors, a Class 6 magical beast was spotted 500 kilometers away on Thousand Poison Valley. While it's heavily injured, its fighting strength is still stronger than that of a Class 5 magical beast. With the Black Wolf mercenaries running like this, I'm sure it's because they tried to kill it. Whoever could kill a Class 6 magical beast would definitely earn a plentiful profit. The other person spoke. You jest. Saying there's a Class 6 magical beast that's heavily injured, just where do you get off? The first person cried out in doubt. The mercenary had a helpless look on his face. Despite it being an injured magical beast, it's still quite hard to deal with. With my trifling Saint Master strength, it'd be impossible for me to even run away. I'll sit this situation out, otherwise, I won't live for long. From not too far away, Jian Chen's ears began to prick up at the sound of the topic of the two men. Walking toward them, he spoke, fellow brothers, is what you say about this Class 6 magical beast true? Of course it's true. I came from that place last night. A large group of people have already gathered there. Practically everyone is a great Saint Master with just a few Earth Saint Master. Do you think this is false? The second mercenary spoke with a face that made it seem unlikely to be untruthful. At that moment, another hurried cry could be heard from ahead as a group of 30 began to rush to the outsides of the city gates while on horseback. That must be the Golden Unicorn mercenaries. If you look up front, those are the captain and vice captains. It seems like they're heading for the Thousand Poison Valley. Just as the Golden Unicorn mercenaries rushed out, another group of men eagerly followed. That's one of the strongest clans of Thascia city, the Huanyao clan. Another person cried out in shock. Even the patriarch of the clan is there. He's one of the strongest 3 men in Thascia city. For an Earth Saint Master like him to run out in such a hurry, could something big have happened? Another person spoke out. Not even seconds after the Huanyao clan had left, another group of horseback members flew towards the gate in a hurry. When Jian Chun saw these men, he had a shocked look on his face. This was because the person leading up front was the patriarch of the Lanming clan. The moment the Lanming clan were about to run past Jian Chen, he walked out to block their path. Just as the Lanming clan were about to cry out in fury, when they saw it was Jian Chen that had blocked them, the angry scowls on their faces disappeared in an instant and were replaced with smiles and polite greetings. Even the patriarch had a smile on his face. "Little brother, so you're here?" "Patriarch, seeing how much of a hurry you are in, did something happen?" Jian Chen asked. The patriarch nodded his head. "Correct, yesterday night we came across some news that a heavily injured Class 6 magical beast appeared at Thousand Poison Valley 500 kilometers away. We're on our way to that area now. In fact, earlier this morning, we had sent someone to invite you over, but there was no sign of you. With little time to spare, we could only have our servants tell you the message when you returned so that you could catch up with us later. Little brother, are you interested in coming with us to the Thousand Poison Valley?" So this was the reason? Jian Chen muttered before finally replying to the patriarch's question. Afterward, another person let Jian Chen ride his horse before sharing a horse with another person. Without any more words, the group began to travel toward the Thousand Poison Valley, leaving behind a group of confused mercenaries who stared at the receding figure of Jian Chen. Just who is that person to have even the patriarch of the Lanming clan be so polite to him? If I had known earlier I would have tried to be friendlier with him. While Jian Chen and the Lanming clan continued to travel toward the valley in a mad rush, the patriarch continued to explain to Jian Chen all of the information he knew. With Class 3 magical beast mounts, everyone quickly exited the city and continued on the roads with haste. After an hour, they had finally reached the place where they could see a gigantic mountain peak whose peaks were hidden by the clouds and fog. Each mountain peak was around 4,000 meters tall, and a faint layer of poisonous fog could be seen swirling around. On the outskirts of the valley, a group of 1,000 people were already gathered densely on a flat clearing with tents everywhere. The Lanming clan stopped a little ways away from the clearing before the patriarch handed Jian Chen a bottle. "Little brother, this is an antidote to this poison. Although the poison isn't too strong, it will limit our strength. If one spends their time too long here, the effects will show, so we may as well protect ourselves from it." Nodding his head, Jian Chen took a pill and then swallowed it as easily as eating a soybean. The Lanming clan had everyone in their group swallow the pill before dismounting. Leaving behind 2 soldiers, everyone began to enter the poisonous valley. Walking into a very dense area, it began to grow hard to differentiate just what direction they were walking in. But because there was a path made for them by the footprints of the ones before, all they had to do was follow this path in a straight line without deviation. The weakest members there were all of the Great Saint Master realm, but their speed was still fast. Not too long after, their group finally reached the apex where they finally stopped in their paths. That was because there was already several hundred men gathered there with serious looks on their faces. Jian Chen leaped nimbly on top of a tree branch and began to look up ahead only to see an entirely white tiger lazily sitting around with its eyes closed while protecting the cave behind it. The tiger wasn't too big, only 3 meters long with white fur all over, contradicting the information from the mercenary in Thascia City. Right in front of the tiger was a giant pool of blood where hundreds of corpses littered the ground with their lifeless poses. Among these bodies was an Earth Saint Master. Chapter 355, The Strong White Tiger. At this scene, Jian Chen couldn't help but doubt his eyes. Was this really the injured Class 6 magical beast that was currently as strong as a Class 5 magical beast? No matter how he looked, it did not seem right. Right now, he and the other 100 men anxiously staring at the tiger were all feeling the same amount of doubt. Even if there were 20 Earth Saint Masters, even they would not be able to fight against a Class 6 magical beast. The sight in front of them was a complete contrast with their thoughts. The tiger's fur was still pure white without a single speck of blood. But all around it were the corpses of hundreds of bodies, including some Earth Saint Masters. To be able to kill that many people without getting itself dirty with blood, this was not something an injured Class 6 magical beast should be able to do. It seems that there's some discrepancies in the information. While this is indeed a Class 6 magical beast, it is not heavily injured at all. Jian Chen spoke to himself. A snowy white tiger cub half a meter long could be seen walking out from the cave behind. With an adorably shaggy white fur, the tiger seemed as if it was just born and not too long ago, since its eyes weren't even open. Crawling out of the cave seemed to have taken most of its effort as it tried to continue walking with its trembling forelimbs. The only strange thing about this tiger cub was that there was a pair of wings on its back. This was something a tiger-based magical beast should not have, so this feature was noticed by everyone straight away. Look! That Class 6 magical beast cub, my god, it has wings. Does that mean that this cub could fly later on when they mature? A Class 6 magical beast cub has appeared, how strange. This magical beast cub was just born into the world. If we can take it and bred it now, then it will undoubtedly grow into a loyal steed with a tremendous amount of power. A recently born Class 6 magical beast, how priceless. Seeing the little cub that exited the cave, everyone instantly began to grow excited as flames of enthusiasm sparked in their eyes. Greed overcame them as they looked at the cub, and some of them started to rub their hands in premonition of the wealth to come as if they were already envisioning the cub in their hands. The excitement from the throngs of men had caused the mother tiger to open both of its eyes slowly. With a powerful roar as if to threaten the group, it raised its head and pulled the cub toward its body with a paw. There was a myriad of emotions in its eyes such as affection, sadness, pain and sorrow, but that had gone unnoticed by everyone. Except Jian Chen, who was sitting on top of a tree branch, saw it. In that instant, he had clearly seen the grim that was ominous in nature. However, it did not hide the moment of weakness at all, allowing Jian Chen to understand just how much in despair the tiger was in. The cub frantically tried to escape from the grasp of its mother as it tried to poke its head out from the mother's fur. But in the end, the cub continued to be coddled by the mother as it let out a small crying sound. There was a motherly look in the mother's eyes as it continued to watch over its cub affectionately as a loving mother would without any malice. Behind the kind-hearted eyes of the mother, there was a flash of pain that was already forcing the tiger to blink away some tears. Everyone behind the tiger mom could only watch the pair of tigers with disbelief. Not a single one of them could believe what they were looking at, since the emotions that this tiger was displaying were far too rich for them to believe that they came from a magical beast. Suddenly, a group of 100 men came running over before forming a line so that no one could pass through. Then, one of them spoke, "Out of the way, everyone out of the way. The Moyun clan has arrived, make way for us." The moment everyone heard of the name Moyun, they instantly grew startled and hastened to make a path for the clan. The group of men from the Moyun clan were all wearing black and flew on by toward the front without any obstructions. "Elder Bai, take a look, it's the cub of a Class 6 magical beast. Dear heavens, it even has wings." A Moyun clansman spoke out in awe at it. Upon hearing this piece of information, the other middle-aged man next to him had a pleasant smile on his face. The moment he saw the amount of bodies that littered the ground by the tiger, he grew serious once more. "Be careful, this Class 6 magical beast isn't injured at all. Even if it's not as strong after giving birth, we still aren't strong enough to defeat it. Elder Bai, it's the cub of a Class 6 magical beast. Right now, no one is capable of stealing it away from us, but with time, more and more people will come, making it less likely for us to be able to get it for ourselves. That's right, Elder Bai, if we hurry, then we won't have any opposition. This is our chance. If we wait, then obtaining that cub would be impossible. Elder Bai, we have a dozen Earth Saint Masters and 70 Great Saint Masters, that's more than enough to provide a good chance against this Class 6 magical beast and to get the cub." A few men spoke to Elder Bai with low voices as if trying to convince him. At this, the Elder Bai had a thoughtful look as he pondered the situation for a moment before finally saying, Elder Kai, take your Earth Saint Masters to fight the Class 6 magical beast. I will go and retrieve the cub, then in the case that we obtain it, we will retreat immediately. Yes, Elder Bai. The few Earth Saint Masters nodded their heads in excitement. If they could take back the Class 6 magical beast cub, then it would be a tremendous boon to their clan. After their response, they talked for a moment about their plans before the Moyun clan had each one of the Earth Saint Masters take out their saint weapons. Forming a barricade, they ran toward the Class 6 magical beast. Elder Bai stood where he was with a look of concentration as he waited for the first group to attract the tiger's attention before flying toward the cub with an incredible speed. Just as the Moyun clan made their move, the other factions of power leaped into action as well in participation of vying for the cub. Sensing the intentions of everyone around him, Elder Bai cried out coldly, if anyone dares to try and ruin this for our Moyun clan, then we will definitely not forgive them. A Class 6 magical beast cub isn't something just anyone can obtain. Everyone should take heed, is it worth trying to get the cub and incur our wrath? When the crowd heard Elder Bai's threat, many people began to stop in their tracks and sigh to themselves. In their hearts, they had already given up trying to compete with the Moyun clan for the cub. First of all, they couldn't offend the clan, and secondly, obtaining the magical beast cub was not an easy task. The Moyun clan had over a dozen Earth Saint Masters and even more Great Saint Masters. This was an amalgamation of power that many were afraid of. Just what type of clan is the Moyun clan for them to be so arrogant? Jian Chen muttered from the treetop. The Moyun clan is the strongest clan in our Skull Kingdom. In terms of influence, it is ranked third in the kingdom and is reported to have at least 50 Earth Saint Masters within their ranks. Furthermore, there are even 3 Heaven Saint Masters watching over the clan. The patriarch of the Lanming clan spoke to explain it to Jian Chen. 3 Heaven Saint Masters? This Moyun clan isn't someone that anyone could belittle then. Jian Chen laughed as he turned his head back to watch the events. After his time in Mercenary City, Jian Chen's outlook had been expanded. Mercenary City had the employ of several saint kings and multiple saint rulers acting as the elders of the city. 3 Heaven Saint Masters were not of anything noteworthy in the eyes of Jian Chen. Seeing just how Jian Chen had downplayed the Moyun clan, the patriarch of the Lanming clan couldn't help but wonder and try to guess at Jian Chen's identity. For him to not even care for a clan with 3 Heaven Saint Masters, just what kind of power was he capable of? Ho! A loud primal roar could be heard as the tiger let out an energy blast from its mouth. The energy blast was like sharp blades of wind that shot toward several Earth Saint Masters in an attempt to cut them down. Several of the Earth Saint Masters didn't have enough time to react to the gust of wind and were promptly speared through the chests. With a miserable howl of pain, they fell to the ground without a sound or any further movements. This sudden change in development caused Elder Bai, who was chasing after the cub, to stop in his tracks as he stared at the several downed Earth Saint Masters in horror. Elder Kai, Bentley, Zagar, are you all right? For a long time, Elder Bai heard no response. That was because not a single Earth Saint Master had gotten back up from the ground. Elder Bai's face instantly paled as he turned his head back to the 3-meter-long tiger with horror. And no, that can't be. The elder muttered. He hadn't thought that a single tiger, even if it were a Class 6 magical beast, would be able to kill a dozen Earth Saint Masters at once. Maybe Great Saint Masters, but not anyone higher. Leaping off of the tree branch he was on, Jian Chen stared at the white tiger with some dejection. So this is a Class 6 magical beast, just how in the world is this considered weak? Chapter 356, Class 7 Magical Beast. The single explosive roar of the white tiger had killed a dozen Earth Saint Masters, astonishing both Elder Bai from the Moyun clan and even Jian Chen. The other hundreds of spectators had watched this with a growing look of horror at the tiger. Heavens, this tiger is terrifying. In a second, it killed a dozen Earth Saint Masters. Can even a Class 6 magical beast achieve this? There is a large difference between a Class 5 magical beast and a Class 6 magical beast that just cannot be quantified by man. Unless it a Heaven Saint Master or higher, no one can hope to go against a healthy Class 6 magical beast. Impossible. While a Class 5 and Class 6 magical beast are indeed far apart, the difference can't be that big. This must be a Class 6 magical beast without a doubt, otherwise, a simple roar wouldn't be able to kill several Earth Saint Masters so fast. That's right, this magical beast has to be a Class 6 magical beast at the very most. There's no way for so many Earth Saint Masters to be killed so quickly, especially if they were working together to divert the magical beast's attention. The people watching the fight were all gobsmacked as they continued to talk among each other. Each one were nervously standing around as they looked at the dead Earth Saint Masters and then the tiger. They were all just great Saint Masters. The realm of the Earth Saint Masters was something they couldn't hope to reach. But even then, an Earth Saint Master was nothing more than a weak entity in the eyes of the white tiger, so there was no hope for them to attack it. To think that there's a peak Class 6 magical beast in front of me, good heavens, this is an entity that only a peak Heaven Saint Master could hope to fight, a mercenary spoke. The strength of the white tiger had terrified everyone. Although it had already killed 100 people before this, those were not all Earth Saint Masters. This sudden and major development had instantly made all of the great Saint Masters renounce any plans they had of capturing the cub, and many had even decided on retreating. The white tiger's strength was truly too terrifying. Only a Heaven Saint Master would be capable of having an even match with this beast. Elder Bai of the Moyun clan was speechless for a moment, but with the Class 6 magical beast cub right in front of his eyes, he was forced to retreat. Hurry back and report this back to the clan. The elder spoke to another person from his clan. Yes. The person immediately left on his horse. In a flash, 2 days had gone by with more and more people coming to the Thousand Poison Valley. Rumors of the Class 6 magical beast were being quickly spread about, so that clans even stronger than the Moyun clan were starting to show up. Practically every group had brought at least 10 Earth Saint Masters, making the amount of Earth Saint Masters there over 100. It was even said that the Heaven Saint Master ancestor himself had shown up not too long afterward. Evidently, even he was enticed by the allure of a Class 6 magical beast cub. Out of the way, the sect of Dragon and Tiger is here. If everyone could please move out of the way. We are from the Spirit Haven sect. The Bayua clan is here. Move out of the way. We are the mercenaries of the war god. Yield the way. A constant stream of strong factions came one by one to the valley when they had heard about the Class 6 magical beast. Each one was waiting for a chance to arise for their groups of eagerly awaiting Earth Saint Masters. With this pace of development, the Lanming clan had already decided to not get involved. With the patriarch deciding that striving to enter the tiger's cave for the cub was no longer a plan that could work, and cleaned his hands of the affair. Today, the heads of every powerful faction had gathered together in order to discuss the matter of the white tiger. While they were each Earth Saint Masters and could most likely fight a Class 6 magical beast, they did not want to pay a heavy price for it. Each one knew that fighting one wouldn't be too hard, but defeating it was not the main problem at hand. Let's see it this way: you've all seen the amazing power of the Class 6 magical beast for yourself. It was easily capable of destroying several Earth Saint Masters at once. Why don't we each join together to fight the Class 6 magical beast, then in the end, we shall all fight for the cub. A middle-aged man from the Bayua clan spoke. No, that won't do. What would we do if one of us takes advantage of the situation to steal the cub? The captain of the mercenaries of the war god said. Who would dare do such a thing? With so many people within our ranks, we could easily encircle this person. One of the experts of the sect of Dragon and Tiger spoke. Fine, we'll do it this way then. Prepare your men. In a flash, the several powers had all reached a conclusion. The only group that wasn't happy was the Moyun clan, since their Heaven Saint Master ancestor was not here yet. If they could only delay for time until he arrived, then they could snatch the cub without anyone hoping to go against them. Unfortunately, every other person knew of this, so they didn't hesitate and went to mobilize their men quickly. Jian Chen had watched the group from the tree branch above. Since the Lanming clan feared accidentally causing trouble, they all moved back. Among this gathering of experts, not a single clan was someone they could bully. The group had already ordered 50 of their Earth Saint Masters to make a circle around the white tiger and then charge at the final moment when ready. The tiger lazily lay where it was before with its eyes closed as if uncaring for the situation occurring around it. However, Jian Chen understood the white tiger perfectly well. While the tiger had seemed as if it wasn't weak at all and was lazing about without fear, Jian Chen had a suspicion that the tiger couldn't stand. In the past 2 days, the tiger hadn't moved at all, as if it had run out of energy. If the tiger truly had any fighting strength, it would have killed every single one of the humans that dared to act against its cub, but it had done nothing at all. This was the most doubtful point, since an act like this was almost contradictory to a magical beast's instincts. "Human, help my child." At this moment, the weak sound of a voice entered Jian Chen's ears. This sudden sound had caused Jian Chen to jump up with a quivering motion before falling down from the tree branch. Looking around himself vigilantly, Jian Chen saw no one around him. Jian Chen's heart skipped erratically as he flew down to the ground. He hadn't sensed anything nearby him, so when he heard someone's voice near his ear, he had been shocked beyond his wits. "Human, I beg of you to save my child." At the same time, the same voice could be heard within Jian Chen's eardrums. The voice carried a pleading yet weak voice, as if it was without energy. Quivering for a moment, Jian Chen quickly brushed off the shock to calm himself down before realizing the sound was coming from up ahead. What was more unbelievable was that it was coming from the tiger. "Who are you?" Jian Chen's lips had barely split apart, but he was sure that the owner of the voice would be able to hear him. "I am called Rum Guinness, the magical beast right in front of you." The weak voice spoke. From the voice, Jian Chen could detect a feminine tone to it, but it was still very weak nonetheless. Hearing this, Jian Chen was shocked down to his core. He never would have thought that the voice he was hearing belonged to a magical beast. It was as if there was no distinction at all between a magical beast and a human, but Jian Chen had no idea just how he could understand. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind as Jian Chen's face grew stunned. Could you be a Class 7 magical beast and not a Class 6 magical beast? Back in Kargath Academy, Jian Chen had read many books about magical beasts. He knew that Class 7 magical beasts could transform into a humanoid shape and speak the human tongue without any distinction. According to what you humans classify us as, I am indeed a Class 7 magical beast. The tiger's weak voice rang out once more, as if it was whispering something private to Jian Chen so that only the two of them could hear. A Class 7 magical beast, that's the equivalent to a saint ruler in the human realm. Jian Chen was in shock as his heart went into chaos. He just couldn't believe that this tiger that was blocking the cave behind it for 2 days was in fact a Class 7 magical beast. If news of how this was a Class 7 magical beast were to be spread out, then everyone would have run away. In the face of such a tiger, just who would dare try to steal the cub? "Human, I beg you, help my child." The tiger's voice could be heard once more with a begging tone. Quickly reining in his shock, Jian Chen forced a smile on his face as he thought out loud to himself, "You Class 7 magical beast ask of something impossible. I am but a mere Earth Saint Master, just how could I help you? With so many people here, you could ask any one of them. Human, from everyone here, I can only trust you. The rest are unreliable, would you help my child?" The tiger asked once more. "You don't even know me, just why do you think I am the most trustable person here?" Jian Chen was amazed at the sloppiness of this tiger's reasoning. Intuition. We beasts have a keen sense of instinct. Without it, we would not be able to sense any other being stronger than us. My instinct does not lead me wrong, it tells me that among all humans here, the only one that I can trust is the one that will be able to protect my child from the rest. Human, will you help my child? Chapter 357. Winged Tiger. God Jian Chen couldn't help but feel awkward a little. He knew that this wouldn't be an easy assignment. Thinking for a moment, Jian Chen spoke, "Could you tell me just what problems you have, and how I should help you?" At that moment, the sounds of yelling could be heard as the amalgamation of powers suddenly charged toward the tiger with all 50 Earth Saint Masters. Ho! The tiger's eyes gained a dangerous gleam before turning its head to the skies and roaring so loudly that the entire valley shook. All those within the valley couldn't help but shiver with dread as they began to fear for their lives. The tiger, who hadn't climbed up for 2 days, suddenly shot straight up. With a furious blood-thirsty glare, it leaped into the group of fighters. The tiger wasn't gigantic in scale, it was only 3 meters tall, but it had a terrifying amount of strength. With the tiger among the humans, it was like a wolf among lambs. With a single swipe, it caused a massacre since no one was able to evade its claws. Anyone that was hit by the claws naturally perished to them, and not a single person was able to strike it successfully. In a short 10 breaths, each and every single one of the 50 Earth Saint Masters from each faction had been eradicated. Not a single one was left, and no matter where the tiger turned, there was no one left to see. After killing all 50 Earth Saint Masters, the tiger glared dangerously at the leaders of the factions, causing everyone to flinch back in fear. Instead of advancing to kill off the rest, the tiger slowly turned around toward the cave, but the weakness in its eyes grew more and more clear. Slowly laying back down on the ground, the tiger lay its head on the ground and closed its eyes again. The leaders of the powers all looked at the white tiger with an equally white face. Unable to say anything for a very long time, they couldn't help but just stand there in utter shock. This is a magical beast that's far stronger than even a peak-class 6 magical beast. At last, one of the leaders spoke with a trembling voice in complete and utter shock. "We're no match for it, what should we do? Even if we were to fight now with just us leaders, we wouldn't be an opponent." Another spoke. "This is wrong, that magical beast is abnormal. With so much strength, why didn't it kill even us? For the sake protecting its child, this is abnormal behavior. That's right, this is far too strange. Take a look at that magical beast, just why is it so listless? It's even napping with its eyes closed. The rumors said that it was severely weak due to the wounds it has. Is that why it didn't fight all of us?" After the shock of the recent massacre, everyone began to talk among themselves. A magical beast's protection of its cub was absolute and would definitely not let go of any human that would dare try to steal it away. Anyone that would try would face the wrath of the magical beast, so this white tiger's actions were a tad queer. At that moment, the tiger's voice came into Jian Chen's mind once again. "Human, I cannot hold on for much longer. I beg of you to promise me that you will bring my child away from here. You are the only one among this crowd that I can trust. I do not wish for my child to be left in the hands of any other." Right now the tiger's voice was even weaker than before. Hearing this, Jian Chen's eyebrows furrowed before nodding his head. "Fine, I promise to take care of your child. Human, I cannot thank you enough. My intuition tells me that entrusting my child to you is the most sensible path. I can also sense that whatever danger my child comes across in the future, you will be able to help him, is that right?" The white tiger spoke happily. "Correct." Jian Chen nodded without hesitation. "Human, I, Rum Guinness, am truly grateful to you. Although this will add on to your troubles, I have no other solutions. Enter the cave and I will explain some things to you." The tiger spoke. Without hesitation, he flew out past the crowd and into the cave behind the tiger like a bolt of lightning. "Fuck, who's that? Are they trying to die? That guy doesn't wish to live anymore. Not a single one of the group had tried to block Jian Chen and instead looked at him go toward the white tiger as if he was an idiot. However, much to everyone's complete and utter shock, Jian Chen managed to slide into the cave without any problems before disappearing from sight. The white tiger in front of the cave seemed to have completely disregarded Jian Chen as if it didn't even sense him. Is the tiger asleep or something? Plenty of men began to shift around uneasily as they all thought with jealousy about how easily Jian Chen had managed to slip in. Most of the men in fact had been tempted to follow in his footsteps. Then, two figures came bursting out of the crowd and flew for the cave behind the tiger with a speed comparable to Jian Chen's. This was all for the sake of the tiger cub inside the cave. Ho! Suddenly, the white tiger that had been motionless until now let out a ferocious roar as it swiped its claws. In an instant, the two figures had been cut in half in midair and fell to the floor in a rain of blood and gore. The two had been Earth Saint Masters, but they were easily killed as well. At the same time, this had also shut down any notions that anyone had about following Jian Chen in. After killing the two, the white tiger glared dangerously at the rest before slowly walking into the dark cave, disappearing from sight. The tiger's actions left everyone completely puzzled on why the tiger had left the first person that entered the cave untouched. Within the cave, a single night pearl hung overhead, illuminating the cave with some light. All around the cave was dark shadows, and in the corner of a cave, the tiny tiger cub was curled up sleeping. This sight was rather cute, but the wings on its back made it seem anything but normal. The white tiger slowly walked into the cave and looked affectionately at the tiger cub. Then, its entire body took on the shape of a middle-aged woman before Jian Chen's amazed eyes. The woman was rather tall at 2 meters in height, which was taller than Jian Chen by a head. Even her physique could comparable to Qin Zhao's. Jian Chen stared at this previously tiger-shaped woman in a daze. Although he knew that a Class 7 magical beast could transform into a human, this was still the very first time he had seen such an event. This was quite mystical, almost far too mystical for anyone to believe. If he were to see this sight in his previous life, he would have called this woman an evil spirit. An evil spirit that could cultivate and was a tiger. When Jian Chen came to this world, he knew that it was far different than the world he used to live in. The average lifespan for a person here was around 200 years old, an Earth Saint Master could live up to 500 years old, and a Heaven Saint Master could live up to 1,000 years old. Back in his old world, even the experts that stood on top of the world could only live up to 100 years old. Duguqiubai himself was the only being that had been able to live to be 200 years old. The newly changed woman embraced the cub affectionately before turning to look at Jian Chen. Human, I thank you for looking after my child. Your kindness is something that I, Rum Guinness, will never be able to return. That is, would you tell me what trouble you came across? I can see that you are extremely weak. Could you be at the end of your lifespan? Jian Chen didn't know what to ask. He still found it hard to believe this motherly-like woman was actually the ferocious white tiger from before. With a sorrowful sigh, the woman spoke, Human, I shall not hide anything from you. Allow me to explain everything in detail. I can only hope that you will not abandon my child after listening. You needn't worry, Jian Chen, do not go back on my word after it is given. I am not one that breaks their word. Jian Chen pledged. The woman's eyes grew bright as she looked at Jian Chen, the weakness in her eyes could still be seen. I believe you, my intuition tells me that you are not a human of deception. The woman went silent for a moment as if she was remembering painful memories. On Cross Mountain, there lies a magical beast clan that commanded the entirety of the mountain with high-ranking magical beasts. This clan was called the Gilligan clan. Within the Gilligan clan, there are two kings that are separated between the land-based magical beasts and the sky-based magical beasts. Those of the tiger-based magical beasts and the rock-based magical beasts are considered royalty within the Gilligan clan. That is because the king of the land magical beasts was a golden fur tiger king, and the king of the sky magical beasts was the legendary rock. As for I was a high-ranking elder of the Gilligan clan. The father of this child was a golden fur tiger king who was the younger brother of the current king of the land magical beasts. Another class 7 magical beast as you would. The father and I loved each other for over 100 years, but it was not until 22 years ago that I grew pregnant. Maturing for 20 years, it wasn't until 2 years after that, much to the delight of the father and I had given birth to the race of the ancient emperor of tiger-based magical beasts, the winged tiger god. Chapter 358, Saving the White Tiger. The moment she spoke of the winged tiger god, Rum Guinness began to feel emotional. A winged tiger god is the king of the tiger-type magical beasts. They hold supreme status among us tiger-type magical beasts and are also a god of magical beasts. It was only because of a winged tiger god that all magical beasts were unified as one in the best. Leading us magical beasts over the oceans after being driven out by the Bai clan, we finally came to occupy this continent. When the father and I heard that our child was a winged tiger god, the two of us were happy beyond belief. Unable to contain his excitement, the father went off to tell the good news to his elder brother. However, the nightmare began at that point. We never would have thought that the elder brother would suddenly have evil thoughts invade his mind. He was afraid that the winged tiger god would soon be a threat to his power, and thus he tried to kill our child. For the sake of our child, the father and I both left the Gilligan clan, but the king had no intentions on letting us go. While keeping the matter of there being a winged tiger god a secret, he had come after us in person. My husband and I together were no match for him and had sustained heavy injuries as a result. However, in the final moments, my husband sacrificed himself to allow our child and I to escape. Right now, I can no longer feel the chi of my husband. He has already succumbed to the schemes of his elder brother. As she told her tale, Rum Guinness' face revealed a sorrowful look as tears flowed from her eyes. Taking my child and running away from the Cross Mountains, I came to this place. Perhaps it was divine providence, or the heavens wished that no harm should befall my child, but thanks to whichever supernatural event, I was able to come across a dependable human after half a year before I reached the end of my lifespan. Perhaps your coming was what the heavens have decreed? The end of your lifespan? Could you be injured beyond any sort of healing? Jian Chen asked. With a grieved look, Rum Guinness spoke. Correct, back when the king of the Gilligan clan was fighting me, a pure dark energy was forced into my body. These days, there is nothing I can do while it ransacks my insides. This dark energy is from the king himself, and I found no way for me to find a way to stop it. All I can do now is to slowly watch my body be engulfed by this energy. If it were not for the superior advantage magical beasts have in their body strength, I would have died long ago. Right now, I only have 3 days at most. Jian Chen couldn't help but feel shocked as he listened to Rum Guinness. Then is there no other way to eliminate the dark energy within you? Rum Guinness shook her head. There is none. The king of the Gilligan clan used his own energy to strike at me with the dark energy. Not only is it strong, but it has permeated my entire body and has destroyed any chance of me living. Even if the dark energy was purified, with my current injuries, I would not have much longer to live. Then what if there was a radiant saint master, would that help you recover? Jian Chen stared at Rum Guinness with a focused gaze. Shaking her head lightly once again, Rum Guinness spoke. This dark energy is not something that a normal radiant saint master could purify. If there was a chance, a 7th-class radiant saint master would be needed. But those are as rare as the feathers of a phoenix wing and not someone I could come across easily in the short amount of time I have left. Even if I could find one, they would not be able to heal me so easily. You do not understand the relationship between the Gilligan clan with you humans. There would be no way for them to assist me. Why not let me try to see if I could help? Jian Chen spoke seriously to Rum Guinness. It is no use, human. You are merely wasting your energy. My time is not long here, you would best take my child and leave from this place. I will use the very last of my energy to help you get away from anyone and secure your safety while fleeing from this area. Rum Guinness spoke calmly with preparations of leaving this world. With that, she looked off in a distance with an unfocused gaze. Husband, you will not be alone for much longer, I will be coming soon. Let us watch over our child from the next world. Together. Rum Guinness' expression caused Jian Chen to feel some grievance as well, but he spoke no words. Slowly closing his eyes, he began to control the radiant saint force in the world. Although he knew that he could not cure Rum Guinness' injuries, he could at least give it a try. A milky white glow of light could be seen forming in between Jian Chen's hands. With time, it quickly began to glow even more dazzling with a gentle but strong light that was comforting to look at. The rays of light that could be felt from this ball of light would make anyone feel happy. Rum Guinness grew startled as the grieved expression was squashed. Staring at Jian Chen, she spoke with shock, "You're a radiant saint master?" Just how? Rum Guinness had been wholly astounded by this sight. Jian Chen knew that the dark energy within Rum Guinness was far too strong, so he had spared no effort in trying to condense the radiant saint force. Because of that, he wasn't able to clearly hear what Rum Guinness had said. In another moment, the radiant saint force had reached the best Jian Chen could manage. Extending his arms, the radiant saint force ball slowly began to float toward Rum Guinness before engulfing her. Rum Guinness instantly grew shocked as the radiant saint force made its way inside her body. But after a moment, she shook her head with a sigh. "No, your radiant saint force is too weak. It's not enough to purify the dark energy left inside my body. At the very most, it can only delay it." With a light in his eyes, Jian Chen asked, "How much longer will it be contained for?" Rum Guinness went silent for a moment as she tried to estimate before finally saying, "The radiant saint force is like the nemesis of the dark energy. If I can continue to gain enough radiant saint force and incorporate it into my body, then I can temporarily seal away the dark energy. However, in this time, I must focus entirely on trying to seal the energy and cannot move against any human." Hearing this, Jian Chen felt some relief in his heart. He could not let this saint ruler like magical beast die here. Mustering up some emotions, he spoke, "Then how about this? I shall supply you with saint force, and you will try to seal away the dark energy within your body." A flicker of surprise crossed Rum Guinness' eyes before quickly growing calm once again. "No, if that is done, then I will not be able to use my energy to fight any human. With so many humans out there, you alone will not be enough to fight them all. Although you have hidden your presence, I can sense that your strength is not enough to deal with everyone out there. I can also sense that a Heaven Saint Master human is on his way here. He won't take long to get here. I must ensure that I kill him." The moment he heard that a Heaven Saint Master was on the way, Jian Chen's face changed slightly. Although the white tiger in front of him could kill a Heaven Saint Master, her life would take a turn for the worse. With each movement she made, she would only harm herself even more. If she continued to exhaust her energy by fighting, then she wouldn't have enough to seal the dark energy later on. "You needn't worry. I can deal with the men outside. I've also the ability to shake off any Heaven Saint Master after me. Right now you should use my Radiant Saint Force in order to seal the dark energy within your body." Jian Chen spoke staunchly before forming even more Radiant Saint Force for Rum Guinness to use to heal. "Human, why do you help me to this extent? I have already entrusted my child to you with no other wish. Right now I only wish to join my husband in the next world. He is alone there." Rum Guinness' eyes had tears in them as a small guttural sound could be heard from her throat. "You are a mother, that means you should take responsibility over your own child. Could it be that you wish for your child to grow without a mother or father? Do you not know the pain this would inflict on your child? This is something that cannot be fixed by any means. Thus, I will do all that I can to help you for the sake of your child." Or do you not wish to take revenge for your husband? Could it be that even after your husband was mercilessly killed by his elder brother, you will do nothing but to take it in silence? Or will you throw all your hopes of revenge onto your child to bear? Are you a mother or not? You are not thinking about your child. Jian Chen spoke passionately. By the time he reached the end of his rant, he had already began to growl slightly. He did not wish for Rum Guinness to die at all. That was because after listening to her tale, Jian Chen's emotions had been affected so that he sympathized with her. Another reason Jian Chen had for her survival was that he truly did not wish for a being that could rival a saint ruler to die. Rum Guinness grew speechless at Jian Chen's speech. With only the slightest of cries, Rum Guinness' determination on dying here had been ultimately shaken by his words. Sucking in a deep breath, Jian Chen said once more, "We must take the time to quickly seal off the dark energy within your body. No matter what, you must live for the sake of your child." Chapter 359, Leaked Identity. Rum Guinness nodded her head in anguish before crying, "I shall listen to you. For the sake of my child, I will live on. I will not allow such an arduous task to fall upon my child. I will definitely take revenge for my husband and look after my child grow old." Seeing Rum Guinness have a new resolve over her life, Jian Chen let out a sigh in relief. He had managed to rescue a saint ruler being potentially. The dark energy has already entered my bone marrow. The radiant saint force is coincidentally the bane of it, so you will be able to force out the dark energy with it. Allow me to deal with the next step. Rum Guinness spoke calmly towards Jian Chen afterwards. Afterwards, Rum Guinness and Jian Chen spent 2 hours on trying to use the radiant saint force to seal away the dark energy within her body. At the same time, the radiant saint force would sometimes fail to make any progress since while the radiant saint force was effective against the dark energy, it was still too weak. Not too long after, however, Rum Guinness had lost her ability to fight as a Class 7 magical beast since she couldn't use the energy within her now. She would have to fight using only her own physical strength, but that would be far less than before. An hour later, Jian Chen had finally managed to allow some of the injuries on Rum Guinness' body recover before preparing to take Rum Guinness out and away from here. "Human, I can no longer use my strength to protect my child. You should take him instead." Tears formed in Rum Guinness' eyes, reluctant to part from her child just yet. Jian Chen looked at the still sleeping cub and nodded solemnly, "You needn't worry. I will do my best for your child, and when I can reach the 7th class Radiant Saint Master level, I will clear away the dark energy within you." Emotionally, Rum Guinness looked at Jian Chen, "Human, I can sense that you mean what you say. You truly care for this mother and child. This kindness of yours is something I will never forget. One more thing, since my child is a winged tiger god, his growth rate will be rather slow. Swallowing valuable resources will allow his growth to accelerate, and when he grows up, he will have the ability to find them for himself." After explaining several more things of importance, Rum Guinness had made sure to remind Jian Chen that news of her cub being a winged tiger god must not be revealed. Carefully remembering every single detail given to him, Jian Chen spoke, "I know what to do, but we should leave now. The longer we idle here, the more variables there will be." With that, Jian Chen spent no more time and held the tiger in his left hand with a bundle of clothes covering its body. Then, with a leap, he flew outside in an attempt to escape. "He has the Class 6 cub, don't let him escape." Unfortunately, there had been a sharp-eyed person who had immediately guessed what the bundle of clothes was. In an instant, everyone had burst into motion. The remaining 50 Earth Saint Masters flew forward to block Jian Chen's path. A fierce killing intent appeared in Jian Chen's eyes as he instantly materialized the light wind sword into his hand with a glow of azure and violet to the sword. Seeing only the flash of a sword and the impeccable speed of Jian Chen, the 3 Earth Saint Masters who were blocking him were brought down in an instant. The surrounding people had already been seduced by the Class 6 cub. Each one of them could only stare at the bulging bag that Jian Chen had. While they couldn't see what was inside, at this point, that wasn't necessary. Jian Chen had been able to enter the cave without being obstructed by the white tiger. Then, the white tiger had went into the cave for a long amount of time without any sounds of battle being heard. This made everyone believe there had to be some sort of relationship between the white tiger and Jian Chen. When they saw Jian Chen dash out of the cave, it didn't take a genius to know that Jian Chen was taking the Class 6 cub with him. Jian Chen's instant takedown of 3 Earth Saint Masters hadn't made anyone afraid. The remaining group of Earth Saint Masters had already resolved to block him and encircle around him with their saint weapons. Fending off the attacks with his sword, Jian Chen's eyes grew even more fierce as the azure and violet glows of light increased in intensity as well. The sword began to blur in the air as it filled the area with its mirror images, ready to make a bloody pathway for him to escape. By now, Jian Chen was already a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master with even more strength than before. With the help of the sword spirits, he was like a wolf within a flock of sheep. No one would be able to block him. The cub's with him, we must stop him or else the cub will get away. All great Saint Masters retreat. Earth Saint Masters, form a circle around him. Even if he is an Azura, we must not allow him to get away. At the commands of the higher-ranking members, all of the great Saint Masters drew back while the Earth Saint Masters flew forward. In a flash, Jian Chen was completely surrounded by Earth Saint Masters. There were around 10 of them that were also blocking Jian Chen's path. "Stand in my path and perish." Jian Chen barked out loud as he advanced. His left hand held the cub entrusted to him by Rum Guinness, and his right hand held the light wind sword. In an instant, the azure and violet light on his sword was thrust in 10 different motions toward the ones that blocked his path. By the time Jian Chen had swung his sword, very few could see that he had moved while the rest couldn't even react before the sword stabbed through their throats. For those that had brought up their saint weapons to block his sword, the light wind sword had already stabbed straight through it and forced them to fall back with blood leaking out from their throats. In a single instant, the 10 Earth Saint Masters that went up to block Jian Chen had instantly crumbled. In the next moment, 10 more Earth Saint Masters came forward with their saint weapons ready to chop and block Jian Chen's escape path. With a sneer, Jian Chen activated the Heaven's Stolen Fortune and increased his strength 3 times over. His sword flickered and blurred mid-swing as a series of metallic clangs could be heard when Jian Chen blocked sword after sword. But each time his light wind sword clashed with one of the swords instantly broke apart to reveal jagged edges. With the saint weapons damaged, the owners instantly spat out a mouthful of blood before gasping in shock. A few of the men had stopped when they saw the azure and violet glow. In an instant, they cried out, "His saint weapon has an azure and violet glow, crap. It's Jian Chen, the first-place ranker of the gathering of the mercenaries." Like a stone that caused thousands of ripples, everyone instantly looked at Jian Chen in shock and disbelief. While this was thousands of miles away from Mercenary City, it was still relatively close for people to know of Jian Chen's name. He was a figure whose name was like a thunderclap, and after becoming the king of mercenaries, countless of people knew of his name. Thus, people came to know that his saint weapon carried an azure and violet glow to it and could easily break the saint weapon of a great saint master. By now, the azure and violet sword Qi was Jian Chen's symbol since no other person on the Tianyuan continent controlled such glows. In fact, no one had ever even heard of such an energy before. What had caused even more shock, however, was the fact that it was the king of mercenaries that had snatched the Class 6 cub. This result was enough to cause everyone to be shocked and not knowing what to do. Every single king of mercenaries would at the very least become a Heaven Saint Master or higher. This was not someone they could afford to offend. Once Jian Chen's name had been announced, everyone began to argue louder and louder on what to do. In a moment, practically everyone in the Thousand Poison Valley knew that the king of mercenaries, Jian Chen, was here. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as he listened to his identity get announced to the world. There was no way for the Jie clan and Shi family back in Mercenary City to not know about this. The amount of people here were far too many. Jian Chen had counted around 1,000, there would be no way for him to realistically deal with them all. Without any more hesitation, Jian Chen flew forward while everyone was stunned in an attempt to escape. Quick, after him. It doesn't matter who he is, but he has the cub. One of the commanders called out. Stop him, don't let him run away. We have so many men, we must take that Class 6 cub. The Class 6 cub was something that everyone desperately wanted, so the major powers had decided to overlook Jian Chen's identity. This Class 6 cub was far too precious to give up. The Earth Saint Masters hesitated for a moment before biting their lips in frustration and running after him. They all knew that Jian Chen was strong and did not wish to be his enemy, but they had no choice but to obey the order. After running away for some time, Jian Chen had made use of the illusionary flash to increase his speed so that his pursuers could only watch Jian Chen grow further and further away. The heads of the powers could only look on helplessly as they had some men carefully enter the cave. Unfortunately, the cave was empty. There was no Class 6 cub, or even the mother. Chapter 360, Fighting a Heaven Saint Master within the Thousand Valley. Jian Chen had used the illusionary flash so he could come to the predetermined place where he and Rum Guinness had spoke of. Not too long after he had arrived, a white figure had leaped into the area with a speed that was barely slower than the illusionary flash. In a short moment, the white figure came to a stop before Jian Chen's eyes before turning into the white tiger, Rum Guinness. Rum Guinness looked at Jian Chen holding her cub with a reluctant look as from before. With another sigh, she spoke, "Your strength still astounds me. Even with many people there, no person was able to stop you. I've heard from the other humans that you are called Jian Chen, correct?" My name is indeed Jian Chen," Jian Chen replied. "Then I will call you Jian Chen from here on out. Jian Chen, I can no longer use my inner energy to fight and will have to rely upon my physical strength. I cannot even assist you since the Gilligan clan will surely find me if I cause too much of a disturbance. The next few days will require me to hide away, thus, I must implore you to look after my child once again." Rum Guinness spoke this time in a human voice, but because of her true tiger form, the voice sounded neither like a man nor a woman. Jian Chen nodded his head seriously. "Be at peace, I will definitely look after your child. Wait until I have the ability to cure you of your dark energy." Then, Jian Chen had another thought, how should I come and find you later? Revealing a tuft of tiger hair, she dripped some blood on it, dyeing it completely red. Handing it over to Jian Chen, she spoke, "If you wish to find me, then have my child drip his own blood on this, it will guide you to me." Jian Chen carefully took the piece of fur into his hands. "Jian Chen, the items you use to disguise yourself may protect yourself from a Heaven Saint Master, but it will do no good to those of the Saint Ruler Realm or Class 7 magical beasts. You would do well to be careful." The tiger spoke. Hearing that, Jian Chen held up a hand to touch his face with a bitter smile. His disguise had been perfect and had allowed him to travel anywhere with ease. He hadn't thought that Saint Rulers would be able to ignore this completely. With a final look toward her cub and a few words to Jian Chen, Rum Guinness disappeared. Woo, 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 the cub that Jian Chen was holding suddenly opened its eyes as it began to cry out loud. Unable to detect whether it was because of the pain of having the mother leave him or the goodbye itself, the cub began to struggle as it tried to stand up on its own power. Jian Chen gently caressed the cub's head as if to soothe the cub into safety while showing a kind expression on his face. Jian Chen had no desire to stay here any longer. The valley was no longer safe for him to stay, therefore the only choice was to quickly leave the area. Leaping up into the trees, Jian Chen began to borrow the tree branches to get farther and farther away. Right behind Jian Chen, the group of men in front of the cave could only shake their heads in regret and disappointment. A Class 6 magical beast had been right in front of them, but it had been taken away by the gathering of the mercenaries' winner, Jian Chen. This was something they still could not accept. Suddenly, the strong qi of a person could be felt from far away as someone with unbelievable strength arrived right in front of the cave. In a flash, the sound of wind suddenly stopping could be heard as a crane-haired elder appeared in midair. Floating, the elder looked down on everyone with his sharp eyes without any feelings in them, as if he was a king over the mass. "It's an Heaven Saint Master." The group went into an uproar as everyone began to feel the giant pressure radiating from the Heaven Saint Master. Everyone could only look up with both fear and respect reflected in their eyes at the elder. Seeing the elder, the Moyun clansmen were all overjoyed as the leader spoke out, "Bai Yuanjin greets our ancestor. We greet our ancestor." The Moyun clansmen all followed Elder Bai's example and knelt down with a reverent pose. The Heaven Saint Master took a look around before speaking calmly, "Where is the Class 6 cub? Honored ancestor, the Class 6 cub was taken away from us." Elder Bai spoke with concern toward the Heaven Saint Master expert that was floating right in front of him. Hearing this, a flash appeared in the elder's eyes. "Do you know which faction took it?" "Ancestor, the one who took the Class 6 cub is the king of mercenaries, Jian Chen. His strength was far too much for any one of us to stop him." Elder Bai spoke. "Jian Chen, so it was him." The ancestor of the Moyun clan furrowed his eyebrows in hesitation before a dangerous glint appeared. "Which way did Jian Chen go?" "That way." Elder Bai pointed off in the direction. Right now he could only hope that his ancestor would be able to catch up to Jian Chen and claim the Class 6 cub for their own clan. The ancestor immediately flew off in the direction pointed out to him and quickly went out of sight. "Quickly, report this back to the sect. We can only rely on the sect elders to help us. Hurry up and hire some men to come over, report this to the patriarch straight away." The Heaven Saint Master from the Moyun clan caused an annoyance to the other powers who quickly tried to report back to their own factions. At this moment, Jian Chen was using the illusionary flash to transverse across the valley. His path was not in a linear direction and had oftentimes changed directions to throw off anyone chasing him. 2 hours later, Jian Chen had traveled several hundred kilometers. Stopping by the side of a valley, Jian Chen stopped for a moment to regain his energy. With the cub sleeping by his feet, Jian Chen began to recover his saint force. With the large battle and his use of his illusionary flash, Jian Chen had already used up 2/3 of his saint force. With his identity revealed and a Heaven Saint Master most likely after him, Jian Chen would need to conserve all of the strength he could to fight a Heaven Saint Master. The dog-sized tiger cub obediently lay by Jian Chen's leg with a slumbering snore. His white wings were folded against his fur in a way that made them quite hard to see without looking for them. Jian Chen sat in a cross-legged position with the sword spirits trying to rapidly absorb the energy within the monster cores to help Jian Chen recover. Under the disguise of the weeds, he was especially hidden from sight. 4 hours later, a boom could be heard as a gray-robed man suddenly flew overhead Jian Chen and then out of sight. Jian Chen could sense the figure fly by overhead while he was recovering his saint force with a nervous expression. "He is truly fast. This must be the Heaven Saint Master from the Moyun clan. I didn't think that even after changing my direction so many times, he would be able to catch up with me. It's a good thing I am hidden." However, Jian Chen's face changed as he thought, "Not good, I'm sure I am already found then." Jian Chen immediately leaped out from the weeds and used the illusionary flash to take him and the tiger cub away. He had been recovering using the energy from the monster cores when the Heaven Saint Master appeared. With such a short distance, there was no way for such a high-level expert to miss the ripples of energy coming from the monster cores. Sure enough, just as Jian Chen left, the Heaven Saint Master suddenly turned around and discovered Jian Chen running away. With a renewed burst of energy, the Heaven Saint Master chased after him. Using the illusionary flash, Jian Chen was quickly traveling through the Thousand Poison Valley. Since the terrain was complicated and the ground uneven, the true power of the illusionary flash could not be revealed and he was unable to shake off the rapidly catching up Heaven Saint Master. Seeing the Heaven Saint Master get closer and closer, Jian Chen gained a fierce look in his eyes as he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Holding the still sleeping tiger cub in his left hand, he flew at the Heaven Saint Master and brought out his light wind sword in his right hand with the azure and violet glow shining on it. In these 4 hours, Jian Chen had recovered about 80% of his saint force. Now that he couldn't escape, it was better to put his all into the fight. Plus, he had never fought against a Heaven Saint Master before, so he could use this chance to test just how long he could last against one. The Heaven Saint Master was about 30 meters away from Jian Chen and floated above him. Staring down onto Jian Chen, he looked at the tiger cub in his left hand and spoke with a slightly happy expression, "Jian Chen, I don't wish to be enemies with you. My Moyun clan is in need of that Class 6 cub, so I must ask you to resign with parting yourself from the cub. My Moyun clan will definitely reward you with a handsome prize and help you unconditionally within our scope of power." You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.